Trying to help you.
Welcome back to the Mad Liberty Party, where up is down, left is right, and the rules don't matter because nobody gives a fuck anymore. Speaking of rules not mattering, though, tonight we have a very special topic. We're going to be talking about the NAP, which is something that is incredibly important to most of the people I know. I'm not gonna say everyone, but to an extent, even my left-leaning anarchist friends have their own fucking idea of what this means. So we're gonna start out by talking about what it means. There, to be clear, there is no set definition of the NAP. People do not agree on what it means. I think the basis is no, do not initiate aggression or force. I think we all, and I, hello, you there, Liz?
I fucking verbally my quality shit.
Well, that's way better than it was earlier. It's still a little bit poppy, but
Okay.
to me, I think we should start by talking about what the NAP means to us so that it's very clear what level, what grounds we're coming from when we do talk. And we are going to have a couple of guests come in a little bit late. So when they get here, we'll have them give their where they're coming from on this too. Because we are going to have Ben and Tommy join us, but they're talking about conspiracies over there right now. So hopefully they don't get. Yeah. Oh, what a conspiracy! Hopefully they won't get picked up by the Fed for saying something they shouldn't be talking about before they get over here. I'm gonna knock on wood just a little bit here, just knocking on some wood. For me, the NAP is much more nuanced. So I want to let one of you guys go first because I'm kind of weird about it. I'm probably, I don't know, between me and Liz, we're probably the most left-leaning people in the episode tonight. Left-leaning.
Quote unquote.
I would say that the NAP is basically fuck around and find out and don't trail on others. Kind of a combination of those two things. Like, don't fuck, basically, essentially, don't fuck with people because
oh my god, Liz.
I can't.
It's really bad again. We were talking clearly for just a second, and now it's gone back.
Wow. So your internet connection is committing violence against you.
It is. Your internet connection is breaking the NAP. What about you, I3?
I am going with the official NCAP party definition of the NAP, and it's very simple. No individual may initiate force against another individual's body or property. That's it.
What about you, David? What do you got?
Mine sounds more the libertarian side, but it's pretty close to what he said. It's, there's a lot of confusion about like, oh, the NAP is pacifist. It's absolutely not. If someone commits aggression against you, and this is bodily harm to others around you that you can protect, theft of your property, damage of your property, and you could even go so far as to say the threat of force. If someone says, I'm going to kill you, then you should have the right to take that as a clear and present danger. In the same turn, whatever situation is presented to you, I mean, you still have to decide whether the risk of defending yourself violently in this situation is worth the outcome.
Yeah.
It's and this is where people get into big arguments about it. Every situation is going to be a little bit different. If a 400-pound boxer says he's going to kick my ass, I'm going to try to peacefully stop the situation.
You use your brain on this.
But if some dude breaks in my back door, he's going to have a very bad night. Maybe his last one. You know.
I would say the key word in the phrase and what I said was initiate. And initiate means doing it first.
Yeah.
So it means I cannot commit a violent act to you first, like being on the offense, and you cannot do it on me being on the offense.
Oh,
It is the defensive posture to respond to initiation of force, not to actually act on it being the first person to do so.
right. And like the other point I wanted to make about this is society is not its own entity, and neither is government.
No.
So the people acting in their stead against you are the ones you're dealing with.
No.
That officer, that agent, violent activist approaching, you're not approaching a collective, you're approaching that person who is actively trying.
I agree with both of you guys, and I'm not gonna rehash. Oh shoot. We got the echo from hell.
That was loud.
I really love that hat. Did y'all see that hat?
We saw the hat, yeah.
Fucking love that. But I'm not going to rehash what you guys already said because I agree with all the things that you said. But I also believe that acts of extortion and acts of like abuse that aren't necessarily physical would be covered under the NAP as far as I'm concerned, because mental and emotional abuse can cause people to lose hope, and like I've seen too many people kill themselves over continuous abuse. There's a certain point where abuse becomes physical and affects you physically, and I don't think that we talk about that very much, especially when we're discussing the NAP. And it pisses some people off that I'm willing to defend myself and others from abuse like that. But I mean, I don't fucking care. To each their own. The NAP it's interpretive. You know, like you can interpret what the NAP means to you. There are a lot of situations where I would not initiate violence. Like if you fucking verbally abuse somebody, I'm not going to throw you in a wood chipper. You know, it's got to be equal. Like if you're upping the ante from what they're doing or what they're threatening to do or what they can cause to somebody, then you're in the wrong if you ask me. So like, no, I'm not gonna fucking kill somebody for being like verbally abusive to somebody, but I might pop them in the mouth.
Well, one could argue, well, if you're not going to actively kill pedophiles per se, then you are not you're for supportive. And I would say, for me, I am not going to initiate force for you stopping wood chipping pedophiles. Let's put it that way. And if I was in the moment that I was the only person around that had to defend someone in this position, then I would say that I would be forced to act in aggression simply because the NAP has already been broken at that time. Like in principle, when a pedophile acts in force against a child, the NAP has already been broken.
Yeah.
So therefore, I am not necessarily initiating violence for the first time. The violence was already initiated. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What was who is this?
Okay, Lizard popped up again and said, man, my service fucking sucks ass. My point is the NAP is don't tread on others and don't let people tread on you. If so, the people treading are liable to social retaliation. And he says he's not going to be able to join because he feels like he's hindering the episode with his sound.
Well, what he could.
We'll have to work with him and figure out how to help him.
I mean, he doesn't have to join video. He can join voice, but you know, if he doesn't have a very good connection, you can probably slightly get away by degrading his voice in the settings.
Yeah, if you want to give that a shot, pop in and try it real quick. We'll work with you here. And I mean, like this guy, Tim here, he's like, I don't know, if you verbally abuse my kids, I'm gonna break you in the face. See, that's kind of how I feel. Like,
well, I would say
I
that verbal abuse is initiating force. So therefore, the NAP has been broken, and therefore your action is just a retaliation, not an initiation. At least,
see, I think because I think I feel like there's a little more escalation allowed whenever it involves children, because those children are entirely dependent on you to provide their safety.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't want to say that children are property, because they are not, but they are your responsibility.
Well, we can talk about that on a political compass.
Your children's well-being is your responsibility until you've taught them to take care of themselves.
Yes.
And
whether or not you believe they're property or not, they are your responsibility.
And that being said, there's some nuances in this.
Property, then I could discipline them or push them aside however I wanted to, but that is not what I am to do. I am to care for them and teach them and grow them so they become independent people of their own. So it is not proper. Children are not property. They are the biggest responsibility you'll ever have in your life.
But there's also the initiation against the disabled, against those who are defenseless because they were born into a government that made them defenseless. So you have to consider, do you expand the NAP to aggress upon those that have been aggressed upon already, simply because they're not children per se, but their environment sort of forced something on them and they themselves can't defend themselves. So you become an enforcer to uphold the NAP by breaking the NAP in some form of fashion. It's just an interesting conundrum.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of, I'm sorry. I'm reminded of this quote in a movie. We're not here to practice democracy. We're only here to defend it. So here in that case is that we're here to practice NAP, but that does not mean we should only use it or we should only abide by it no matter what. And there's some nuance in there that you all can talk about that.
What I was gonna say is like the opposite of that also is true. I mean, like if you're an asshole, right, and nobody likes you and you've been a douchebag to people, but not necessarily breaking the NAP. If somebody comes to break your NAP and you can't defend it on your own, people are not going to feel obligated to help uphold the NAP for you. Not unless they're just like really philanthropic. Most people are not going to step up and help you. Like in theory, it's really nice to think, oh, the whole community is going to always defend the NAP, but they're not obligated to defend your NAP. So I honestly think that the NAP will only stand up as a community effort if you guys all work together. Because like if you make everybody hate you, they're not going to help you.
Now, see on this point here, it's still abiding by the matter of choice.
Yeah.
That asshole chose to be that kind of person to everyone. They chose to live their life that way. They knew people, if you act that way to people, they're not going to support you when you need them.
Yeah.
So that was that person's choice. Now, someone who helps their neighbor, aids their community, gives a stranger a ride, all these kinds of things, those people are naturally going to garner more favor from their community.
Yeah.
You get back out what you put in.
Exactly. Like there have been, I've seen it in practice multiple times before, just like we'll bring it in, reel it into the internet here, because that's what a lot of people have a lot of experience with. And I hate to admit that, but we're not as physical and face to face as we always are, as we used to be. But like I have many a time seen someone who is a complete asshole have something happen to them online, you know, like they'll be silenced or something like that, and nobody gives a goddamn. You know, sometimes they're fucking relieved that it happened and they don't do anything about it. And I mean, like, they're not obligated to. Like, you basically, like, imposed your assholery on people, and then you want to cry about how this person might have shut you down and other people are not helping you and stuff like that. I think you have to be aware of the environment that you've built for yourself. That's like kind of self-defense, you know?
That's on a point you were talking about a minute ago about like the philanthropic people, the ones that will stand on principle regardless of whether they like somebody or not.
Yeah.
In that situation, the jerk needs to hope that one of those guys are paying attention.
Yeah, because if they're not, then they're not going to be there. Like, I have a tendency to speak up even for the assholes when I feel like the principle is wrong. But, I mean, if I realize they've been terrorizing the community or whatever like that, I'm like, nah, man, I mean, I don't think anybody really wants them here. So, I mean, forcing everyone to have somebody around that they don't want, I mean, that in a way is also trying to force people into doing things that they don't want to fucking do, because voluntary association is a really big deal to me. Personally, I don't like blocking people or banning people. I encourage people to, you know, block them themselves if they don't like it. And eventually, if someone's a dick enough to the whole group, they will all block them and not have any problems with it, and they'll either get bored or, I mean, like, even if they don't get bored and go away, nobody knows that they're still there, so it doesn't matter. And they chose to do that. That's not enforced upon them. Free speech. It's not free. Like, if you continuously abuse your free speech, no one's going to fucking respect your free speech. I guess. Does that make sense? Am I being weird?
And before we get like too far into this, like I wanted to go back to something real quick because this applies to the internet thing you're talking about, and it applies to children. It applies to the abuse situations that you were talking about. A lot of the problem people have with the NAP is like people are like, but what if this? What if that? And everybody tries to explain it with a situation.
Yeah.
First thing people do is they think, okay, but I had this personal situation in my life like that, but not the same. So does it even apply there? And so you need broad terms for specific things. And in this situation, something that should be considered a NAP violation, in my opinion, is coercion through fear.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, I feel like that's kind of part of extortion.
Yeah, well, extortion, blackmail, a lot of what happens to kids by abuse,
gaslighting
sorts, a lot of what happens to significant others from their own SO, you know, there's some kind of fear in the situation, something hanging over their head where someone is allowed to persuade them, down them, mentally abuse them, verbally abuse them, emotionally abuse them. And they feel like they have to comply with it because they're going to lose something if they stand up.
Yeah.
Now, I've been there personally. And it's not a good place.
I mean, the government does it all the time. Look at this right here. You know, this guy caught an assault and battery charge because someone thought they could threaten their family. And then the state got involved, gave them 45 days. And that then, I believe that that's a breach of the NAP of the state, from the state.
It is.
I did 60 days years ago for being.
Some people would not defend themselves because of this.
Pretty easy.
Well, I would say that the fear comment you made, Mando, it kind of goes back to this, and a lot of people in the crypto space are like this, and it just, I don't know what to say, but no, I will not comply. A lot of crypto people are in this season, this is heading into tax season, so there are a lot of videos now on YouTube popping up about how to do crypto taxes. And I'm like, I will not comply. I do not consent. You're breaking the NAP when you force me to tax bombing of kids overseas. You're forcing me to support abortion in the state. You're forcing me to support those that which would deem me being hateful because of my skin color, my age, or my gender. You're forcing me to support an administration going back for decades of stealing my money just to give it to other people who were not here illegally. Now, I preface all that by saying I am not fearful of not paying my taxes, and neither should you. Taxation is theft. It is violence. It's the ultimate form of violence because what the government's doing is saying, hey, you owe us some money so we can then do something against yourself, against your property, whether it be property taxes, whether it be forcing the SWAT team come to your house because you might have said the wrong thing online on Facebook, or that you went to a MAGA rally. When you pay your taxes, you're supporting violence against yourself. It all goes back to that kid phrase, when someone takes your fist and hits your face and they say, quit hitting yourself, quit hitting yourself. That's what I feel like people are doing when they pay their taxes.
Especially this last year, because like, you know, all the protests against police brutality and shit, you are literally paying for them to brutalize you while you're out there protesting them.
Exactly.
Another point, the crypto thing. How are they going to make you pay taxes on a currency they don't even want to recognize yet?
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
Well,
I know exactly how they're doing it, though.
Well,
I mean, they're taking it through.
They're getting bank records and centralized exchanges like Binance.us, Coinbase, Kraken, KuCoin, and Gemini all are required to give you records to the IRS. And simply because you've allowed these exchanges to have a selfie of you and their driver's license, they now can know who, which transactions are being used and bought, sold, transferred, whatever, because now they can identify each transaction to an ID, your ID, physical ID. I'm talking about the actual state ID that you are begging the government to use when to drink alcohol or drive a car. And that's how they do it. Bitcoin is traceable, not because it's supposed to be private, but because it's on a public ledger and no corporation or government can access that public ledger. But once you get into a bank or centralized exchange, they have access to that ledger, not to the Bitcoin transactions themselves, but a way to connect you to that transaction. And now they have a way, they have a way to track you now. And to say, hey,
exactly what I mean when I say white market crypto. That is exactly what I'm talking about. That right there. You're using white market crypto at this point.
Exactly.
You can wash it and remove it and, you know, like remove it from that fucking system if you want to. But until you do, it's definitely white market crypto at that point.
Exactly. And one thing, here's a good example, Mando. Between 2013 and 2015, the IRS, and not the SEC, but another similar organization requested, and when they request something, you're legally allowed to give records. They requested Coinbase to give all the records of those people who traded Bitcoin from 2013 to 2015 if they made over, what was it, $30,000? So some type of amount that the IRS needed. And Coinbase just said happily, yeah, I'll give up the records.
Yeah, they didn't even, well, they're in bed with all sorts of things like MasterCard and shit like that. So
Coinbase is now public.
All the time. Yeah, they roll over all the time.
Coinbase is now public.
Like, don't use Coinbase. But I mean, to be fair, I know we're taking a segue here just real quick. You can search for crypto ATMs in your area, and you can actually go through and find out which ones report and which ones do not, and use cash to buy crypto. That's my
Yeah, well, I actually
the best
bought
way to protect yourself from that little bit of a fucking violation.
I bought Bitcoin with cash not too long ago, two days
Yeah.
ago, in fact. So, and the only information they request is your phone number, so they can send you a sort of a PIN number just to access it on a one-time basis.
I mean, use a burner or whatever. It doesn't matter.
It's a burner phone. So, I mean, you know, and MasterCard wants to use crypto. Hey, I do have a crypto card. Right here, I have a crypto card. Now, this crypto card is Visa's backed. But this Visa-backed card that I have is attached to crypto and has a bank. The interesting thing about this, though, is that I can remove the bank account and remove all my crypto from that card into an offline storage wallet, and it's not traced or tracked because now they don't know how much I moved.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that. But here's the thing. As long as I have that bank account attached to that crypto card, I'm being tracked. And I'm aware of that. I actually knew that going in. But what I wanted to do is show normies that you can use crypto to buy groceries. That's all what I wanted to do. But, you know, I myself initiated that I will be looked at. I actually gave permission to have my bank account connected to my crypto.
Right.
You do not have to provide taxes at all in any way, shape, or form. Taxation is theft, no matter how small, how large it is. And that's to me, the biggest NAP breaker of all is that when everybody pays their taxes, everybody's looking to itemize or deduct or become a business or an LLC or a nonprofit, because they don't want to pay their taxes or they want to get as much of a refund as possible. I'm like, the biggest refund you can give yourself is not to do it at all. But hey, I know people have families. I know people have businesses, and they have a lot to lose. But just know that when you complain to your government about breaking or about forcing you to do X, whatever X is, that you've actually gave permission to them to break X because you pay taxes.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
I mean, it sucks, but yeah, if you give permission to them to break the NAP, what do you guys think about that? If you give someone permission to break the NAP on you or others, do you have the right to fight back?
Well,
Or have you given it up?
How much? Well, it just depends on how much you're wanting to give up. And if you say, well, I'm giving up my ID because I want to drink alcohol. Well, now you've given up more than just that. You've basically asked the government to require permission to use a car, to buy a house, to rent something, or to whatever, to even get a job. They require a social security number and a driver's license most of the time, at least on my end. And so now you're begging the government to give you a job because this state-owned ID here, you just broken your own nap by saying, well, I'm going to comply with the government, whatever the government tells me to do. I have to show up my ID at the poll to vote. I have to show up my ID to drink. And the list goes down further along the line. What if you showed that ID because you don't want to get murdered? So you're begging the government not to murder you because now I'm one of you. Here's my ID. I'm one of you. Don't shoot me. I'm one of you. And that's what I'm always thinking is I don't want to go back to those days to where you're begging the government to spare your life because you begged them to give you permission to carry out your own life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, personally, I don't think that we no one has actively consented to the government. They've only passively consented to the government because most people don't even know how it fucking works.
Well, civics lesson the public schooling these days don't really do well in civics and government classes.
No, they don't.
Well, public schooling is intended to make obedient worker bees that are just skilled and intelligent enough to do their jobs, but not enough to question what's going on.
And see, along the lines of like mental and verbal abuse and shit like that, I think that public schooling is a breach of the NAP upon children.
Oh, well, California's finding that out now. I watched a video about Suicides are like up 200% in that state among kids between 13 and 17.
Wow.
And there was one county in Las Vegas, I don't know which county, that said we need to partially open our schools or something. And they were even going against the governor guidelines. They said, no, we're going to fully open, because the county had so many kids committing suicides in one stretch that the public official of that county, the school board and the superintendent said, we are going to reopen even if it means we get arrested, because of the rash of suicides in that one Nevada county.
Yeah. God damn. Just a quick segue, by the way. Thank you guys for being here. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And be sure that, like, if you guys disagree with us, or you have any questions about, or you want to bring up a topic about the NAP and ask us what we think, hit up the fucking chat and we'll pay attention. Like, I'm trying to keep an eye on it and everything like that, and popping stuff up. So, like, if you want to give us a scenario or anything, we'll totally take it and figure out how we feel about it and stuff like that. I want to, like, as far as, like, the non-physical abuse part of things leading to physical reactions, because suicide is a really big deal. And it happens to people who are attacked by societal norms. And I believe that societal norms are real and they will never go away, because as soon as you have a couple of people there, you're going to end up with accidental norms being formed. But I believe that enforcing those upon people is a breach of the NLP. What do you guys think about that? Like,
well,
I grew up being a victim of this because I'm fucking weird. I'm queer. I'm trans. I'm fucking a pagan, and I was in a very small southern town that was not really cool with that. You know, they did everything they could to break me down and force me to just give in to the societal norms. And there were several times where that almost ended me. And I had to fight, and I had to fight against that. I think that imposing on people like that is a breach of their NAP. What do you guys think?
Well, the environment led to that originally. The lockdowns, the mask mandates, the social distancing, the virtual learning. I'm not against virtual learning if it's done voluntarily. And I'm doing a hashtag around the internet, homeschooling now, or homeschooling movement. And I think we need to get back to that. Now, a lot of people come back, well, you're affecting the kids' NAP by homeschooling them because they're not going and socializing. And apparently now you can socialize easier as a homeschooler than you can as a public schooler, because if you're in public school, you don't get every class to associate with your classmates sometimes. Sometimes you only get a brief amount of recess, and then you go back to the indoctrination camps.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, the schooling we have is against the NAP. It's child abuse. I'm going to say it right here. It's
like they're in
public
prison.
schools.
They are there.
Yeah.
And
Public schooling is child abuse.
Another point to make on that too. In a homeschool setup, you know, there's a lot of times where, like, parents don't see their kids because their job and the kids' school hours conflict with each other. You know, the parents home while the kids at school, and vice versa. In a homeschool situation, you can school your kids whatever time you need to make sure they're getting their time with their family and they're getting their social time too.
Yes.
So effectively, homeschool can be better for their social development just because of the freedom of time.
Yep, I agree. And I think it goes to a certain point that I think two-parent households. Now, some people are going to get irate when I say two-parent households, but I am not necessarily against two gay couples homeschooling. And I'm not necessarily against a black or white community only homeschooling their own children and their own racial, hegemony. As long as they're voluntarily able to do that, I don't care. I don't want taxes to go paying for them, but I also don't want them to force the way they want homeschooling done on other people. So I would like this homeschooling movement to go into knowing that for the children's sake, that any instruction needs to be done in such a way to encourage growth and learning and not indoctrination.
Exactly, because if you bring your children up on lies or like incredibly biased and don't give them any other views, technically, I don't even know if there's a technical about it. Like, you are breaking their NAP too, because this is their development time. They're trying to understand the world, and you are intentionally giving them a false view of the world and enforcing that upon them, and they don't have the ability to consent to that because they don't fucking know any better. I have a problem with that. That's the only one of the only complaints I have about homeschooling or pod schooling is that they can be even more oppressive than being in school at times.
I think most of those oppressive homeschooling environments can be attributed to private religious schools. Jewish, Muslim, Christian, Catholic, Mormon, so on and so forth. Because they're more strict.
Communities do that too, though.
Well, isolated communities do that. Now they're sects, but whatever. The point being is they become indoctrination camps themselves.
Another thing to think about is some of those that you mentioned, they're not even just religions at this point. They are their own societies. Yeah, well, that's true. You want to talk about our own society, talk about the Israeli government is breaking the NAP against ultra-Orthodox Jews, and that's about half the country. Right now, half the country is being suppressed by the Israeli government because the ultra-Orthodox Jews do not want social distancing, they do not want mask wearing, and they certainly do not want lockdowns. So and the Israeli press is suppressing that information. I had to go on RT on Telegram to find that information out. So, some ultra religious schools may appear to be somewhat constrictive, but then again, some schools of thought are not.
Yeah, and that you just have to go case by case because it's easier for some people to do that than it is for others, but you really can't be like, well, all these Christian schools are just going to teach creation theory and people are not going to understand science and then they're going to be ill-adjusted, because they're not all like that. Sometimes they teach both side by side.
I think the Ron Paul curriculum does that.
I think that if you're going to teach one culture, you should at least take a moment to teach about other people's cultures to let people know that there are different views. I don't think you have to focus on them, but you got to at least let them know that they exist. Otherwise, you're misinforming them and teaching them that this is the only way. It's
about being thorough.
Yeah.
For example, all three of us here probably have our own preconceptions about one cultural or religious group or another at some point through the history of the centuries. But the more information, the more actual history, the more actual documentation that you provide to your children while you teach them about these things, the more they're able to come into their own understanding of it outside of your bias.
Hey, Timothy, I want to know what state, I don't want, message Mike privately, and I would like to know
about where that happened.
Yeah, is it a liberal type of state? And to me, I think that there was a report I heard on Odyssey. We're going to have a long-term study about the effects of lockdowns and the NAP being broken on children, especially those in liberal states. If they were to move to a more freer state, how would they react to more freedom? And if they stayed in that liberal state, how long will it be until they realize they were duped?
Well, I mean, the same can be said for overly conservative states, because I don't want to misunderstand. Like, conservative states do not mean freer states.
Well, I'm talking. Yeah, there's true. I mean, I would say that which state? I think it was Tennessee. They're getting to the point that Tennessee is now more restrictive in abortions than Alabama, which is I never thought possible. But I don't think the government has the right to break your NAP to force you to not or to have children. Yes. Mando, we can hear you.
You're a little frozen up. Flip your camera to the side and back.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. We just wait.
My Wi-Fi was acting up. I had to turn it off. I'm just on my phone signal now.
All right, cool.
You may need to reload a little bit because I think you might be frozen.
Here, I'll back out and come back in.
All right, I'll keep an eye out for you and pop you back in here.
Yeah, I would say that I know you probably can't move, and I'm very sympathetic to your situation, Timothy. But I would say that
because the government is violating your NAP and forcing you into the hamster trap of the hamster wheel of the white market.
Okay, good. I see where he's going. He answered my question. He answered my question. Now, I will say this, that if you're going and willing to move to a red state, you're going to have to accept that red state's cultural values. And the more red it is, the harder it is to find liberal enclaves. So those people that are getting oppressed by a red state, just know if you move to a liberal state, you're moving into a state that might not appreciate your values either, because a lot of Democratic states are coming hard on Democrats. And I'm finding that less in the Republican states, although my governor, God bless her heart, she has instituted the mask mandate until April 9th. And all the states around her have lifted the mask mandates.
Wait, are you in the South? Because I know what "bless your heart" means in the South.
I am in the South. That is correct.
Yes.
I am a Southerner.
All right, so we're all on the same page here.
So that's a good topic for the NAP because it's kind of got some gray zones because the NAP is open to interpretation. I've noticed this amongst the Libertarian Party members and different anarchists and stuff like that. Some people believe that not wearing your mask around people is a breach of the NAP because you are putting people at risk.
Prove it. Prove that I'm putting at risk. I want them.
Some people believe that it is a breach of the NAP to force people to wear these masks and follow these mandates because it's harming people. And I think that to an extent, they can both be correct. Like if you knew you had COVID and you didn't try to keep your distance from people and keep people around you safe, then yes, you are intentionally putting people in danger. But if you don't know you have COVID, like if you don't know you have COVID or you don't think you have COVID or anything of that nature, I mean, what are you doing wrong? You have to prove intent, I believe. That's my belief. I believe that shutting people's businesses down against their wills and forcing people to wear things they don't want to fucking wear and that can actually like sometimes make them
especially the business thing. Forcing someone to shut down their livelihood is a NAP violation, flat out. I mean, there's all kinds of things.
Stay in their home against their will is a NAP violation.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things a business could do or a person could do, regardless of what is considered acceptable to society at the time. There's all kinds of things that can be done for a person to still go out and about, or a business to still keep its doors open. Saying they absolutely have to shut their crap down is forcing them into a situation where they can't take care of their own.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's the bigger evil here. If we're
Well, and
really
they're
gonna
doing
have a
it through
conversation
force
about
of
lesser
threat.
evils,
I mean, threat of force. They're doing it through threat of force too, which
threat of
falls right into that whole like, you
coercion of
know,
fear.
coercion thing.
Yes,
Exactly. Now,
coercion.
I mean, if you know you've got COVID and you go around coughing on people and standing right next to people and refusing to cover your face and shit like that, I think you're violating the NAP. But you have to act, you got to actually have it. You got to actually know that you're hurting people on purpose.
To hit on something from a couple years ago, the people that were spitting on groceries
Oh yeah,
need to be
Yeah,
punched
or
in the fucking face.
licking.
that
Yeah.
right there is a provable act of violating NAP.
Yeah, that was entirely intentional, and there's zero, there's not even ironic cause to do that shit. You know, it's
Yeah.
it's just grossly just like ruining somebody else. And the bad thing is, if it was not caught on camera by a bunch of like YouTube crap, nobody would have known. Somebody would have bought that jug of tea or whatever, never known that somebody's DNA was in it. What do they
Yeah.
have?
Now, and one thing about that is I remember people starting copycatting and they didn't realize, hey, that you could get in trouble for this. Now, if I were to cough on you, and I don't know if I have COVID-19, but you said, okay, let me test you. Then I test positive. Did I break the NAP? Because I didn't know it at the time. But then I tested. You asked me to test. I said, sure, why not?
To be fair, if I don't give a shit if COVID's going on now or not. If somebody walks up to me in public and starts coughing on me on purpose, like it's an act of
It's an act of aggression
violation,
anyway. Yeah, it is.
that's an act of aggression, and I'm probably gonna at least shove you.
I would say, you know,
If someone's at the grocery store, minding their own business, getting their own stuff, doing what they have
Exactly.
to, they find out 2 days later that they are positive. That's the difference between accidental and intentional.
Yeah.
and remember, this is initiation of force we're talking about, not accidental force.
In order to initiate force, you have to be aware.
You have to be
that you
aware,
are
so it's
doing
not an accident at all. It's on purpose.
in my opinion. Like, I mean, some people will disagree with that, and I have seen them disagree with that, and the NAP is open for interpretation. So, I mean,
I don't
like,
think it
we
is.
can't say they're wrong. Well, it is, though, because there is no definite definition.
Initiation of force. That's it.
Y'all want to hear something funny?
Sure.
So,
What?
5.5-year-old twins, right? So, like, I can't tell them non-aggression principle. They don't understand the term.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
They're baboons.
That would be hilarious trying to tell them in a 5-year-old speak about the NAP.
That sounds like me accusing my cat of breaking the NAP on.
But this is like a valid point about like accidental versus intentional. One of my twins has this thing stuck in his head, even when he gets angry and hits his brother. He thinks if he says sorry, it becomes an accident.
Well,
I mean, you can't really retroactively apply the NAP.
This is just like a talking point. It's like for all the adults out here debating what the NAP is. This is actually a harder topic when you're trying to talk to little kids about it.
Yeah.
So it kind of illustrates it better, because I swear to God, I don't know the right words to give him to be like, dude, an apology does not make it an accident. Like, I've said that to him 5 different fucking ways. and he still does it.
You know, we need to get them
he's
on
that ripe age where they're still trying to figure this stuff out. It's great though that like the wheels are churning up there. Like, he's trying to come up with a thought process and apply it, even if it's incorrect. You know what I mean?
He finally got the idea that just saying sorry isn't enough, right? So like just yesterday, I'm like, dude, you can't just hit him and say I'm sorry. He's like, I asked him if he was okay. No, that doesn't make it better either, man.
You already did the act. You already hit him.
It's
You can say sorry afterwards, and it can make it better, but that doesn't remove
Okay,
it.
this is a good Reddit post, Mando.
Good Reddit post, yeah.
Yeah, ELI5, the NAP. Explain it like I'm 5.
That kind of reminds me of my kid, like we were trying to teach him, hey, if you feel threatened, because, he's a little bit older than your kids are now. He was a little bit older at this point, but only by a few years.
Mm-hmm.
He was taking, he was taking self-defense and shit like that. And we were like, if you feel threatened, you can defend yourself.
Right.
And he picked up the defense of others on his own. And it caused a bit of problems in the school because they don't allow you to defend yourself or others in school. So we had to deal with that a little bit. But to be fair, I never fucking got mad at him for defending another person. That's cool.
I tell you what though, because I've seen it happen.
But
if your child was actually like in the moral right, if you as the parent go in there and raise enough fucking hell, they will apologize. Because
to be fair, I let the other parent do it because I get real riled up about this stuff.
Well, I'm going to say this is, I don't know if, Amanda, you've tried this. I have no kids. So my experience is based upon others, not my own. Have you gone and told him, hey, did you ask your brother to be hit? And then if he says no, you go to the other brother and says, did you ask to be hit? And if the brother says no, well, then there you go.
That might be a way to try and...
That actually might not be a bad idea because it illustrates consent.
Consent is the key word that maybe a 5-year-old will try to get.
Yeah, it's hard to think about that way in the aftermath of the incident.
But I agree.
You have one kid trying to excuse herself, and the other one is screaming bloody murder.
Yes, right.
Well, hey, I mean, at least in real time, hey, if you don't want to get hit back like that, don't do it again. Apologize to your brother. Otherwise, you might get hit like that, and you might cry like that.
It gets even more complicated when they're doing this play fighting stuff too.
Well, look, I'm out of expertise. I give up. I'm sort of uncle. I'm crying uncle now. So
no, I do. No, I do like your idea though. That trying to make them understand the idea of consent. The way they're acting, the way they talk, I think they're both old enough to understand it.
Okay.
It's a whole different thing. Like, people are used to dealing with kids one at a time.
Yes.
The 5.5-year-old twin boys are my first kids.
Oh.
So, and twins is a whole different ballpark in and of itself.
I bet.
People are like, oh, I can only imagine. I have 3 kids. No, you don't.
Twins are different.
You have no idea.
You have one kid each. You have 3 kids individually, one at a time.
You had that first kid 2.5 years before the second one came along.
Yes.
Don't tell me what's going on.
But I like this comment Timothy said. I'm very jelly. I would love to be in Wyoming right now because that's a very Wyoming is a very crypto-friendly state. So more or less, yes. In fact, it's the only state that's friendly to crypto at this point. And I would say that for sustainable life skills, I would like your daughter to watch the movie, the remake of True Grit in 2010.
Ooh, True Grit.
Yeah, I think at least Haley Stanfield, before she became a pop sugar actress, I didn't like that she went into the music industry. But nevertheless, there's a couple of movies out there that show wholesome ways of a 13-year-old girl holding a weapon. I think that's pretty cool. And this last comment by Rodney, I'm not going to say it, but I would I would say that is correct, Sir Earl. Sir Rodney Earl, you are the winner of one internets.
One internet.
One internet's for you. Because I am tired of wearing the mask. Now, I am tired of wearing the mask in places that the government owns. Let me put that in that way. That's what I'm tired of. Tommy! It's good to see you.
Okay, we have all gone around the circle and explained what the nap meant to us since it's open for interpretation. Welcome to the show. What's your nap?
The nap is volunteerism for dummies.
Can you extrapolate on that a little bit?
I just got off of Donkey Show. I need to go grab a cigarette and I'll be right back.
All right, cool.
Oh, I'm putting him on the spot right away. Go fucking smoke when you come back into
Hey, Tommy,
you all.
I'm glad to see you still a clout chasing cuck though.
Yeah.
To me,
Massive clout chasing cuck.
That reminds me. That looks
when
like
Tommy gets back, we'll put him on the spot about it.
If Henry VIII play sort of was involved with the cuckold of the medieval era. I don't know why, but I'm thinking of if Henry VIII was a cuckold instead of a murderer.
Oh my God. There are so many issues that we could put on the table to discuss whether it's a nap violation or not. You know, I think this is way more useful than like the theoretical flagpole argument and stuff like that.
What is a theoretical flagpole argument?
You know, the one where they're like, oh, if you fall from the sky and land on somebody's flagpole and you're
dead.
holding on for dear life. Like
you're dead. No, you're dead. You don't affect the NAP. You're dead.
I don't know. Like the flagpole argument drives me nuts because it's not realistic.
Okay, so let's break
it's not
quick. If they can prove that you landed on their flagpole on purpose, then okay.
Like as an act of invasion.
I mean, kamikazes were a real thing.
It's true. They were. So yeah.
Look, if I'm going to fall down on the land on a flagpole, just shoot me because wherever I came from wasn't nice anyway.
Well, I mean, like in the theory thing, they're all like, "Hey, did you? Oh, we got Ben here too."
Ben.
In the classical argument, they're like, "Well, you want them off your flagpole because they're on your property."
Just get a big stick and poke them off.
Let go of my flagpole right now. And if they don't, are they violating the nap because they're not vacating? No. But if they let go of the flagpole right now, they will probably fall and die. I don't know how they survive falling to the flagpole in the first place. Like they don't go into that.
Flagpoles are a social construct. They're racist. Next question.
Flagpoles are a spook.
Flagpoles are a spook.
Okay, so like first of all, Mike, like that whole argument about the flagpole. Physics breaks this theoretical idea in the first place.
Well, thank you, sir. Next equation, please.
We're gonna trophy hunt with our flagpoles now. Keep them there as an example.
Look, if I land on a flagpole, just put a sign on me saying I watch too much Game of Thrones.
Touche.
Now, are you saying like, are we talking like impaled on my flagpole?
Yes, I'm going to be impaled on the flagpole.
Are we talking Super Mario Brothers style?
Yeah, like if you fall from the sky and grab onto their flagpole to save your life, and like you're hanging from it from dear life, and they demand you let go.
I don't view that as an NAP violation. I'm buying you a beer.
I find it.
Shit right
yeah, like, dude, get down here. We're gonna fucking smoke a joint. You look like you need one. Do
Look,
you need
if someone landed on my flagpole in my own property, I'm like, that's interesting, and just do a GoPro video on TikTok.
Well, what I think is funny is like I don't know why people use the flagpole argument all the damn time.
I don't know. I didn't hear it until now.
What is
Mike Bobby is clearly a fed plant.
What's everybody's fascination with poles?
I mean,
I don't want to go there, sir. Nope, don't go there. Nope.
We don't have to
I sent my poll to Mike Dunn.
Oh my God!
You're saying you're polled to a lot of people.
I actually did. I just sent it to 2 feds, Mike Dunn, and then they told me to dress it up in a top hat and put it in the chat, and I did. You know what's funny is before the boog, I had never sent a picture of my dick to anybody ever, and I was really proud of that. And then the boog happened.
That's interesting.
And
I
then the
appreciate the
boog
thought.
happened.
And the boog happened, and you broke your dick pic chair, yeah.
I know, right? I really took pride in being a decent, respectable. I was still a degenerate. What the fuck am I saying?
Yeah,
Good
you're
question. Let me know.
So like
the
okay.
The
Yeah,
NAP,
you guys,
dude.
tell us what the NAP means to you guys since we're since y'all just
me,
came in and you haven't had a chance.
The NAP is a short-sighted view of volunteerism that doesn't take in the full aspects of it because it only pertains to the force used upon others. It doesn't pertain to the force used upon them. It doesn't pertain to why you're in an agreement to not use force in the first place. It doesn't address why force would be necessary. It doesn't even address why force, what to do when force happens, right?
You
Is
clearly
No, it
volunteerism
leaves
for
it all
dummies.
very open. It's very open. It's very broad.
Yeah, and it makes it useless. I'm not a
You're
fan
not
of
the
the
I
first.
think
NAP.
it's good. It's
Dude,
good.
you're not the
Theory.
first person
It
that I've
sounds
talked
good.
to that hates the NAP. That is like, you know, like like.
So, are you involved in the AP, the aggression principle?
No. I think that they're both redundant. I mean, I agree
Well,
with
they
the
are
NAP.
redundant. They're both principles.
I believe that it's like Ben said, it's great in theory, but it's a small part that people get fixed on because it's the easiest thing to understand in what is really a larger scope thing of trying to discuss volunteerism. And what is funny is that it's a lot easier to sell people when you talk to your average boomer or normie. It's a lot easier to sell them on volunteerism than it is the non-aggression principle because they start asking these questions of the NAP immediately. But if you explain volunteerism to them, they're like, okay, I get that. And they might still have issues with it because you get my roads and you get my small police force, right? But you don't, or slight law enforcement.
It doesn't raise
right?
as many questions or confusions because there's so many gray areas.
Yeah. And so I don't hate the NAP. I just find it absolutely useless, really, in the long term to really build anything around the NAP, anything at all. Just a mission statement, some sort of moral constitution, whether that be for a person or a group. I find the NAP to be a god-awful landings or starting off point from. And I'm like as cliche and cap as they get.
I have thought about that in my brain, but not solidified it before, like enough to bring it out. But I actually fucking agree with you to an extent. I think that the NAP is useful for people who already understand because they don't have to because the NAP is left so open for interpretation. It's a personal thing.
I think the NAP makes a good foundation.
I don't even think it's a foundation.
For that.
No.
I mean,
I don't disagree.
Really open for interpretation. So
I think voluntary action. I think reinforcing the concept, constantly reiterating the concept of voluntary action, is a much better foundation than the non-aggression principle is.
I think so too, because I don't think you can understand the NAP without understanding volunteer.
The non-aggression principle is too subjective and too moral to each individual in their own purpose. What it helps to do is it helps to click. When I say it's volunteerism for dummies, because I'm explaining how that's often interpreted, because people often come to the NAP first before they come to volunteerism, and I think it should be flipped around. Because volunteerism is a foundation. NAP is a guideline for people to think about what the principles of non-aggression are in each specific scenario, right? So like across the street from, I'm at my parents' house right now. Across the street from me is a chomo. He's a registered sex offender. I mean, I would care to think that this movement as a large would not find it morally unpleasant for me to just go over there and burn his house down. Now, am I going to do that? No. Would that be considered a violation of the non-aggression principle? Certainly, because I'm inflicting damage on property. I'm inflicting damage on him. I'm inflicting damage on myself and my family when I assuredly get arrested and go to prison for murder. I mean, if I'm doing anything at all in the movement, I'd be violating the NAP because I'd be aggressing against myself and my ability to help at all with the movement.
Well,
If
You
you
see
knew
where
for a fact-
that entire
If you
I
knew
would-
for a fact that he was doing stuff to kids over there, though, it would change the whole situation.
okay, but no, but he's not doing stuff to kids right now. I should clarify. I mean, as far as we know, but it is like
he
well
seems
established
to
fact
be
he was at
behaving-
one point. Okay, but even if he's behaving right now, in the past he didn't. And I'm saying that that action that I went and did, that if I went and did something stupid like that, it would not. I don't think it would be
It wouldn't
too.
break my heart.
I know that's what I'm saying, but if you believe in the NAP, it should. And that's where the NAP falls apart.
I would say it doesn't fall apart because
I mean,
the
yeah, because you
initiation of
could
force
argue-
has not taken place with him just living there. There was no initiation of force when he moved in. There was no initiation of force for you to aggress upon his property or his person. Unless, of course, you see him actively abusing a child, then you have the opportunity. And
Okay, but how? Okay, so we talk about pedos going wood chippers. How often do you actively see in your life that happen? Or
I
how
don't.
many of?
I haven't.
Okay, then I'm not saying you specifically. This is kind of a critique of the movement as a large. So, okay, a lot of people are like, well, I'm going to go through all the pedophiles and wood chippers, but if you haven't actively seen them do that, then it is a violation of the non-aggression principle, in theory, right? But is it really? Because you have strong
Well-
suspicions that they did.
Yeah, if you know, if you don't have to see it if you know they're doing it. I don't.
But
think
see, okay, him having done that in the past could be interpreted as an initiation of force
Okay,
because he did that against
Okay,
somebody.
Mando, you have an example already. You told us that if you put this into your 5-year-olds, that you can't retroactively say, okay, you hit me, therefore you've broken a non-aggression principle. Well, you hit me like already. It's like 5-10 minutes ago, and now you're transgressing upon me because you've broken my NAP. So
Okay, but
there's a nuance there about how far along should you break the NAP. Is it immediately 5 minutes, 5 years, 30 years?
what I'm saying is I agree with that nuance, right? What I'm also saying is that if I went and did that, I don't think anybody would really feel too bad. And if you don't feel too bad, then that doesn't help reinforce your stance with the NAP.
I would say I'm defending the property, and I'm looking at it as a property that you.
But the property that is owned by him.
Okay.
The property that is owned by him, though.
Is he paying taxes on the property? Is he paying property taxes?
I would assume so. Yes.
He doesn't own the
deed is
property. The government does.
Then I don't care that the government had their property damaged. If we really want to get into that one,
Yeah, the
okay,
government.
then I didn't violate the NAP because, and through that argument, I could go burn down anybody's house because the government owns it, and I don't believe any action against the government is a violation of the NAP.
That's why I'm advocating for everybody to not pay property taxes.
Well, you could go.
Okay, but
yeah,
but
but
you
they're
can't-
having to do it under force of extortion.
but but that argument falls apart because you can't say that their house is owned by the government because they're being forced to pay taxes. Because if the house is owned by the government, as an anarchist, I believe that property does not does not exist within any realm of personal private ownership. Ergo,
but the innocent
I would be morally just.
do reside there.
Now,
See, the only thing is, though, I don't believe in, I agree with you that the property would not exist technically, but I believe in the law of occupation. Like, if they are there and they are occupying it and they are using it, that's their fucking property right now.
okay, I got an example.
What
here.
do you got?
Several years ago, I witnessed a guy. He grabbed a woman by the hair, was trying to drag her into a van. I interceded and beat the shit out of him. Did I violate NAP by beating the shit out of him in defense of her?
No.
Okay. All right. Just
no.
What was she not able to defend herself in your
she was
observation?
swinging. I mean, she was swinging. She was trying. She was clawing at him, trying to get away.
Then I would say NAP has already been broken because of that. and so therefore the NLP was broken, and therefore you went in to aggress upon that person that initiated the force in the first place.
Okay. Now we ended up going to court, and he got charged with kidnapping. Now he was found not guilty, but I didn't see the whole trial because I was just a witness on my little part of it, and because I was a witness, I couldn't see the whole trial. They ended up finding him not guilty.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, I know, right?
Did he get called not guilty because you stopped it?
I don't know. I was, like I said, I was only in there to do my little spiel on how I stopped it and what I witnessed. But apparently, there's more that happened inside the bar and that I was not aware of. But I mean, I don't feel like I violated NAP because I was coming to the aid and defense of someone who could not defend, who was obviously being forced to do something against their will.
You did the right thing, flat out.
Right. Oh yeah. To this day, I know I did the right thing, but it's just, I feel like if I failed to act, I would have anyways, I
also like to recommend that everybody congratulate Ben on his nice beard. I really like his beard.
Thank you.
Where did Tommy go? Tommy, we're missing you.
Dealing with some issues that aren't just drama, but actually need to be dealt with.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, you're good. No, you're bad. I'm still here though.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your commentary and the idea. Now, Mando and I tried to explain.
Well, hold on 1 second. I feel like we skipped something because we got into drawn by Tommy and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I got under my desk.
I don't know what you were saying.
We got into a debate.
Ben never explained his version.
Tommy had said, but we didn't give Ben a chance to
interpret
the NAP. Yeah. Ben, interpret the NAP.
Ben has the floor.
Yes, the NAP is very vague. I mean, my interpretation of it is I will not initiate force on anyone else unless you initiate force on me. And if I do initiate force on you, if you do initiate force on me, the retaliation will be immediate. It will not be delayed. It will be immediate and equal. So, I mean, that's just, if somebody punches me in the face, I'm going to punch you in the face. If somebody shoots at me, I'm going to shoot back.
Would that be sort of a modern version of an eye for an eye, tooth for tooth?
Essentially, except not taking it. Except I wouldn't. For me, I wouldn't. If I were to put this in like a government term, I would not take it to like immediately to like a nuclear option or anything like that. It would be equal retaliation.
The action is as equal as the reaction.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's something we kind of discussed earlier, but we didn't put it in those exact words. I'm glad you said that. An equal retaliation.
Right. It's not gonna be like the mafia where it's like, they killed one of us, we're killing 10 of yours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You take out a city, we're taking out your country. No, not exponential retaliation. It's gonna be equal retaliation.
I kind of put it a little vaguely because
it's almost like
going up the ante.
We want all retaliations to be on an equal playing field. We want equitable retaliations, if you want to put it in those sort of intersectional terms. Like we want everybody to feel like they're at home when they're retaliating against the person that's committing force against them. So none of this. Oh, you took out my hand. Now I'm going to kill your whole body. That's okay. I get it. It's a violence against violence, but if I killed you and your life is gone, I still have a life without a hand. But that's not necessarily equal representation of an act of retaliation, at least in theory. Now, some say, well, I can only use one hand because I was born without one hand, so now my livelihood's been taken away. So therefore, I have no hands. So therefore, I have no life. I'm going to take your life because you disallowed me a livelihood to make a living. So how else am I going to work? Oh,
Well, that's putting the burden of your own life onto somebody else.
that's true. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. And then you also got to bring into the scope of like what led up to those events. Like, were you a provocateur?
And I think like when what he's talking about there, societal responsibility is not a real thing.
No,
we're responsible.
So can I
for
just
ourselves.
see? I can agree with that, but that's volunteerism. That has nothing to do with non-aggression principle, and that's to me what reinforces the entire idea that the NAP is a small cytoplasm of what is a larger issue of volunteerism and use of force, and not being, use of force, ability to associate and disassociate, right? Freedom of association and disassociation.
I use what that you said term that Alex uses a lot. Fuck around and find out.
There's not a within the NAP there is no no allowance or no observation of whether or not society has a moral obligation to you. So that can be interjected into it.
Yeah, I did actually kind of mention that a little bit earlier.
Interject so much shit into the NAP that is debatable whether or not it's there, right? You can decide whether there's, your NAP can have a societal, you can have a social contract within your NAP. You can have law. You can require a state within your NAP. You cannot, right? It becomes, people want to use it as this tool of the bottom unity or as a tool of volunteerism and anarchism, and it really starts to fall apart because it can't be used, because it can equally be needed for a state, for statism, right? To defend the state, non-aggression against the state, right? And we seem to think that there's this idea that it's this end-all be-all of all anarchists or of all libertarian-minded types. And that just pisses me the fuck off, because I find it as nothing more than a split-second decision. It is an in-depth conversation that is valuable of what is nothing more than a snap decision in each moment of our lives. But it isn't our lives as a whole.
Tommy, on this exact point, this is something I said earlier, but you guys weren't here yet. Society and the government are not their own entities.
No, they're
made
not.
of individuals. And so
they're spooks. They're literal spooks.
Yeah, everything is a spook.
Yes.
No, not everything, but
no. I disagree with that, because the government is an entity in itself. And if you were willing to accept doing work for the authority, to do work for the government that reinforces its authority, you are at that point subject to its authority and subject to the reprisals thereof.
You're subject.
Like if you sign the contract.
I'm getting pretty spicy
what people
here.
forget is that the government's authority is bestowed on it by society.
My point earlier I made was if the government is trying to infringe upon your rights and violate the NAP towards yourself, the ones attacking you, the ones breaking into your house, the ones trying to force coercion of fear upon you are the ones in violation of your NAP.
Okay, so somebody just said this to me. I was bitching about the NAP and be like, hey, I'm on here saying fuck the NAP, kind of. And and they said this to me. And it's a good, because that's not a popular opinion. Not just with bottom unity, but with the fact that I am very much on the ANCAP side of that bottom unity, right?
You're not the only ANCAP I know that believes this, though, believe it or not.
I know, but there's not many of us, and I get shit on for it. I've opened disassociation from me because I say fuck the NAP. But with this said, they said this well. You need a well-educated, self-reliant, and responsible populace for that to work. You don't have that. We have fucking Walmart shoppers.
Yeah.
And all done cleaning up a mess.
Well, to be honest, like you had said, I believe that if you understand voluntarism or voluntary association or anything like that, then it becomes almost natural to follow at least some format of the NAP, whether you even know it exists. Because, like,
You do by
not-
nature, but it shouldn't be the conversation.
Right, exactly. Like, I mean, I think that people, now I'm going to fucking flat out say it. I think that people use the NAP as an excuse to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
The do nothing
Absolutely.
libertarians. That's interesting. We had the do nothing Republicans and Democrats.
Actually,
Okay, but the do nothing Republicans are a lot of them are just do nothing libertarians today who want to be spicy edgelord conservatives. And
Tommy,
Fair point.
I wanted to
Mutualist gang.
hell
I
yeah, where you at? I'm right here. I believe you could be a mutualist and a capitalist, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that would be a nice conversation to have, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
Mando's saying something.
Yeah.
You talked about like the simplicity and redundancy of the NAP, and you've also talked about the idea that we have an uneducated populace. Do you not see the NAP as a tool to make the regular populace start asking these ethical questions?
No,
not at all. Not at all.
voluntarism is a far more nuanced.
I touched on that earlier. And I have a direct example of my father, who's a natural minarchist by trade, like just naturally. Okay. And I explained to him, I actually started to try with the NAP, and he just looked at me like, well, but that he brings up all the gray areas, right? All of them. It's just a constant discussion of gray area. I bring up volunteerism, and there's still gray areas, right? You know, issues of enforcement, issues of roads, but Tim is somebody who would be naturally receptive to such conversation as he was. If you look at those two side by side, volunteerism was a way better option. And you know why? It's one simple reason. The NAP can't take down the state. Volunteerism can, and that's the sole purpose. NAP is useless to take down the state. It is ultimately ineffectual. Volunteerism is the ultimate is the ultimate enforcement of being able to take down the state, the ultimate thought and action of taking down the state.
So, Tommy,
and then might argue, but any existence of the state makes the NAP null and void, because everything we do is in one form or another being like affected and force from the government.
Okay, but then does that make Timothy McVeigh the good guy? And that's where you get into some shitty
that
stuff.
Question on live. See, I don't think.
But you see the ramifications of that.
Let's fucking talk about it.
I'll talk about it.
It makes the Waco people not the bad guys.
Well, the Waco people aren't the bad guys anyways.
Timothy McVeigh. Okay.
Well, Timothy McVeigh did not think out what he was doing, and he killed a bunch of kids in the process.
Yeah. See, my problem is that he brought people who were not. I mean, and I have read his fucking manifesto, and I understand what he believed to an extent, and I think that he was willing to harm innocents in order to.
Okay, but if you want to go within the realm of NAP, though, all those children were under the authority of their parents, who were themselves enforcing the authority of the government. State. So those children, by proxy, were of the authority of the government. And now, if any existence of the state or the government is a violation against the NAP, then the harm done to them was not a violation of the non-aggression principle if that had already been violated.
Incorrect.
You see where this falls the fuck apart.
I'm not an Antrim, but I don't. I'm not an Antrim.
Let Mando talk.
If these children are accountable for their parents' actions,
no. The parents are the children are not accountable. The children are not.
You not have to mind they are not accountable yet. They should never have been in the equation of retaliation against the state. Not
okay.
Well, yeah, that's true.
My point is, I'm not saying I agree with that line of. I'm not saying I agree with that line of thought. I'm saying that's the logical conclusion of where that goes, because the children are underneath the authority of their parents. It's not that they're responsible for the things their parents do, but their parents have authority over the kids.
How many of us turned out just like our parents?
Oh God, I turned
Not
out a lot
me.
like my father. I'm
Not me at all.
Everybody tells
Not
me that
me at
all the
all.
time.
I'm sort of my mom and dad don't really know that I am still me. They think I'm a different person.
When you
And
put
to
the
be
time
fair,
inflation-
even though I'm not a piece of shit like my mother was, I do have traits and I have social
I don't
skills
really
that
know where this is. I don't really know where this
you
is
know,
going though, because
but-
my
I
point
got my
wasn't
mom's
that the
belly.
children.
you're talking about.
I got my mom's chankles.
It feels like you're going towards the fact that due to them being part of that state system, they were an acceptable casualty almost at the point for the action that he wanted to do. Where
I'm not saying I
it's
agree with
wrong,
that. I'm saying the NAP would agree with that. You could make the NAP
Yeah.
agree with that
but
You
no,
could.
but no, it doesn't because
easily. Easily, you could. I just
How?
laid it out.
No, it doesn't. It does
Okay,
not.
first
Because
off,
even though their parents are irresponsible and they're giving over to NAP violations, the children never made the choice to do so.
But you could say that the children were underneath the authority of their parents. There go. It was the same
Yes.
decision made by one person, the parent.
But they have not developed their individualism yet. They have not.
I'm
become
not
the
even
people.
saying, Mando, I'm not even saying I agree with what I'm saying. I'm
Yeah.
saying when I laid that
know
out,
I know you're
it
playing
was
devil's
the
advocate.
logical conclusion of. Well, I mean, it's a logical conclusion of the NAP because it's not even devil's advocate because that could easily be the NAP could easily be
Well-
used to apply to that. That was Timothy McVeigh's justification
yeah,
in doing so. Timothy
I
McVeigh's
regularly
justification of the Oklahoma City
agree.
bombing was an NAP response to what happened at Waco. And
yes.
children
It was
were
it was a
I'll be right
direct.
back.
Yeah.
I need a beer.
All right.
You're like, I need a beer for this, but
Timothy McVeigh did at Oklahoma City was a direct action to what he viewed as a violation of his non-aggression principle by the United States federal government. Largely
if you
because
think about it, society as a
Lar-
whole
Did the
accepted and supported what happened to Waco.
But did the
I'm
ATF come
sorry
exactly toward his
if
front door? Did the ATF say to Timothy McVeigh, "I'm going to kill you"? And did Timothy McVeigh go to the ATF's front door and bomb that building? Just ATF. I would say to Tommy that would be the correct way of subverting the NAP, and it falls apart. But the government building he bombed wasn't an ATF building.
it was the largest ATF field office in the general
Field
area,
office,
though.
well, yeah, but it
was an ATF hotspot. It was the
hot
closest.
spot.
It was the closest ATF location he was going to get for
Well, I mean,
hundreds of
and if you
miles.
think about it, it wasn't just Waco. It was deeper than that.
It was Ruby
more.
Ridge. It was all of it. But
It was everything. It was society as a whole and what they fucking caused on us. Now, I can relate to what he says and said and to what he thought was, and to what was going on. Because I'm not even going to say that he was imagining that because he was right. That's exactly what they fucking done to us.
But at the same time,
and-
he took a total
Hold
disregard
on,
to
y'all.
innocence or the sanctity of human life whatsoever.
But that doesn't become a defense of the NAP itself.
It
That doesn't make him not violating the NAP, frankly, because the NAP was so subjective to him and so subjective to everybody that
And it is subjective to everyone. And so, like, if you were to put yourself in Timothy McVeigh's shoes and look at how he was viewing it, no, he didn't break the NAP.
honestly, I'll put it this way. I have just as much if we were to say create a community, I have just as much of a problem creating a theocracy as I do an NAP-cracy. To me,
NAPC, nothing would ever get done.
no, no, that's for starters. But to me, because it's so subjective, it's just subjective like religion is, right? We want separation of the church and the state. We should have separation of the people and the NAP because it's so subjective. Nothing, no foundational thing should be done between any. A person shouldn't make the worldview should not be foundational upon the NAP because worldview requires a group of people or people as a large to come into it. Anything to do with formulating any sort of group that tries to abide by something has no business using the NAP as its basic founding point.
Well, you and I don't understand the NAP the same way then.
Nobody
That's my
does.
point,
That's
though.
the point.
Nobody does.
But-
Nobody understands
Like-
the interpretation of God the same way either, and that's why, as a society, we've tried to move away from creating any
yeah.
group of people formulating. I mean, that's why there's a separation of church and state. That's why in a volunteers, I mean, I guess
And
you
I
can
mean-
voluntarily agree to enter into a group of people that understand the NAP the same way, just like you can voluntarily agree to enter into a group of people who believe in the same God or the same dogma or the same whatever as you. But at the end of the day, that comes down to volunteerism. I mean, that is volunteerism shredding the NAP right there. You can voluntarily agree to conjoin with a group of people who respect the NAP or view the NAP in the same way you do, but you're voluntarily doing it. And at the end of the day, that is where volunteerism supersedes the NAP leaps and bounds. That is where volunteerism is how you explain these issues to Walmart shoppers. That is where the NAP is not how you explain it to Walmart shoppers. Because I guarantee you, in my hometown, if I went and tried to explain the NAP to most any Walmart shopper around here, they would say, well, that makes it all right for me to kill Middle Easterners because of 9/11. 20 years later, they would say that's all right. Guarantee it. I guarantee you at least a quarter of people would say that. I would say at least a third, probably closer, would say it would be all right to directly harm Middle Easterners. And a good chunk of that would probably say in America, much less overseas. Then, by the way, it was Minneapolis, wasn't Memphis.
Yeah.
But,
McVeigh's been dead for like a while.
McVeigh's been dead for 18 years or something, died in 2003. So what I'm saying, Mando, is to kind of bring my point together is that it's what makes the NAP useless is the fact that people don't know anything. And simultaneously, it can't be used to help people learn anything.
Well, and because it's so subjective to each individual person, like trying to force somebody to agree on the NAP as a whole, it just won't work out. It can't work out. And I mean, this episode in itself is a very good
indicator that it doesn't work.
Because all of us, we have had nuanced views. Like, not a single one of us said exactly the same thing when we defined the NAP. And as we're sitting here, and I mean, it's great that we're able to have different views on the NAP and have an actual open, productive conversation about it. But I don't think it would be even nearly as interesting as it is if we weren't disagreeing on it. I think that this is a great example of that and everything. But it's just, it depends on who gets to interpret the NAP. There are situations where one party would think, no, this is not breaking the NAP, and the other party would think that it was, and there's just no way to fucking get around that.
Well, I'm at the point where the only adherence to the NAP I would hold is economic. Beyond that, I'm probably on Tommy's side for anything non-economic.
That I can agree with. Because economics is a split-second decision. The economics is ones and zeros, right?
Yeah.
It's a constant blockchain. I mean, that's what's beautiful about blockchain. It's a constant 1 and 0 decision, 1 0 decision, 1 0 decision. So that I can agree with, because when you get in the laws of economics, you make that NAP decision every single second, right?
And that's one thing that you kind of helped me, Tommy, I see where you're coming from, and I can agree with you. Yeah. But my only reservation in going full-blown Tommy volunteerism is that I don't have enough experience beyond the economic NAP, if that makes sense.
That does.
I do not have enough observational, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual experience to say, okay, I'm volunteering all the way. I'm a volunteerist all the way. Now, if I do get to that point, I am probably going to not only agree with Tommy Payne, I'm probably going to advocate for his whatever he wants to advocate. If he wants to advocate for dick pics, I'm going to advocate for that. I am at.
You won't see
I'm-
me
yeah.
advocating for that. I'm kind of ashamed
Okay.
of it, but
Well, okay, but I can see where you're coming from.
I
and
will.
it's-
More dick pics.
No, well, that's a different topic, different video.
shut up, Mike Bobby.
But here's my only reservation about not promoting the NAP. I think that if we were promoting the volunteerism ideology or principle in any way or form, that we're starting from ground zero, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
And that if we were to start from ground zero, I felt, and now I'm going to break my own statement after I make it. We would erase 50 years of trying to get the libertarian notion of NAP in society. But in the last 50 years, we really haven't done much. So maybe it's time for a change.
Mhm.
And I like Tommy's idea, but, and this is my only but, economically, I am for the NAP. And that's the only thing I can go with right now because that's the only thing I'm heavily involved in. So beyond that, I'm open for the interpretations.
Yeah.
Like everybody has a different interpretation of it. I'm not a father. And I can see Mando's point. I've not had a transitioning to where I transitioned from one gender to another. Mike has had an experience. I've not had to beat up someone because they hurt a woman. I've not had Ben's experience. And whatever Tommy's experience has, I've not had a pedophile live 2 streets down from me. I live in a very safe neighborhood. I'm very privileged.
Well, I think
So I can't see
somebody-
that.
Fucks with one of my kids. My version of the NAP goes out the fucking window. I will
Dude,
destroy
I can't even
Yeah, I saw your comment
anyone,
about that.
anyone that fucks with my kids.
Dude,
I saw your
extend
comment.
the NAP
Yeah.
to not. I can't dick with the NAP when someone dicks with my kids. When someone dicks with other people's kids in front of me, like if I see that,
Oh yeah.
I don't even
Oh yeah.
fucking stop to have a
Somebody's
philosophical
anything
thought
to a
process.
child.
Or,
It's fair. I think it's fair game. to just-
Animal, I will kick the shit out of you over an animal. If you're abusing an animal, I will fucking hurt you. Like you need to fucking stop. And that's my, like, you know.
As far as my experience with the NAP and what makes me solid about it, there's too many feds that are watching this show for me to ever possibly say what my experience is with it.
Yeah,
I will
What
drink to
makes-
that, Tommy. I like that.
I mean,
I had a couple ideas. I'm poking the bear with both of these.
Uh-oh.
The first one, and this kind of goes back to the McVeigh conversation. It also goes with to me the NAP is very direct. It's about one-on-one experience with another person. Aggression, non-aggression, who instigated, who did not, and how you handle that. I have a very mathematical mind, so I go to, like Tommy said, I go to ones and zeros whenever I think about how the NAP should function. So this brings up 2 points that have been brought up. Number one, should the NAP not abide by innocent until proven guilty?
Nope.
This is something that's never talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why.
Major issue.
But it's not.
See, I don't know. I look at it like I look at the NAP the same way you look at like putting somebody under like citizen's arrest. If it's a felony, to put someone under citizen's arrest, like my background, I've got about almost a decade of security experience. I've arrested probably hundreds of people doing crazy shit.
Okay.
Now a misdemeanor is the big gray area because you have to actually witness it being occurred in front of you. There's certain things there's criteria that has to be met before you can actually place somebody under arrest for a minor offense. A felony has got a big, broader swath to it. A felony, you can place somebody under citizen's arrest based off of a witness statement or a victim outcry or something like that. However, you still face if it turns out that they didn't do anything, you still face the possibility of being arrested, being charged with.
How many victimless felonies do we have in this country?
Too many.
Too many.
I mean, I'm on my third run. I'm on my third run of
damn near all of them.
But okay, so here's the other thing too. Mando, you brought up. Oh fuck, I'm spacing it. Oh, innocent until proven guilty, existing within the NAP. It clearly can't exist within the NAP, but you know what? Innocent until proven guilty, and that concept that we got through things like the Enlightenment, that can exist within volunteerism. It cannot exist within the non-aggression principle. I feel like innocent until proven guilty is one of the massive stepping stones in progress of humanity. I'm not even saying I'm
Why
a
can't it
progressivist.
exist with the NAP?
Because it's up to each individual
act
person to decide whether they're innocent or guilty or not.
Yeah.
Innocent until proven guilty is a community, possibly you could say societal decision, where the person has the right to defend themselves against the accusations, and they're presumed innocent until guilty because they're not because before that was normalized, they had to prove their innocence or they were considered guilty.
Right,
and that was
the point I was trying to make.
Okay.
That was trying to coincide. I was trying to make with this. If you witness it, you witness the aggression against you or the aggression against a defenseless person, then that's the guilt. That's all the guilt you need. That's your dude. That's your right to act.
Okay, then you're proven guilty. But the NAP is easily used for things that you never witnessed. And we're going back to the Timothy McVeigh thing, because one could say that the ATF was correct. Did Timothy McVeigh have the absolute conviction that the ATF was guilty of, or the government was guilty of doing what happened? And I mean, there's debate that he could. One could make the logical argument that he couldn't meet the parameters to convict of guilt within the realms of somebody being innocent until proven guilty.
See, and that's why I'm a big supporter of like citizen investigation and prosecution.
Absolutely, but that can exist within volunteerism.
Not state, not investigation and prosecution by the state.
Absolutely,
you can't get a fair trial if the state is going to go against itself.
Yeah, I entirely agree with that. Now, my point, I mean that actually clarifies one thing I was just about to say, better than I would have said it probably. My point being, though, is that that is reinforced by volunteerism, not by the NAP. And so that's, I guess, my biggest problem is that we just get hung up on something that really, every time you want to put it in applicable use, and you made a good point there. How do I pronounce your name, by the way?
Me?
Yeah.
Just call me I3.
I3. I don't know. I also have terrible vision, so I can't read what you think.
Just call me I3.
I3. So what you said there, brother, it economically is different, and there's a few other isolated examples I can think of, like if one's a competitive fighter per se. I don't know, I'm really getting very specific.
This is very nuanced, but I guess it's okay because it's not what I talk about.
Economics is a great example because the laws of economics are an individual decision made constantly, right?
Yeah.
The NAP is across the board, regardless of what you believe in economics, communism to capitalism to any of it, right? If you believe in true anarcho-communism, not like Marxist communism.
Right.
But that doesn't, that is, to me, that's still voluntarism in a place and time where it just so happens that the NAP just constantly is used.
It just clicks in, it clicks into place.
It clicks in
this once. Yeah.
But that's a law of mathematics, not a law of humanity. That's a basic law of supply and demand.
And supply and demand, I think, is where we need to go if we're talking NAP. To be honest, because
you beat me to my point. Yes.
Well, there you go. Continue, Tommy.
No. That was literally word for word how I was going to end that. So you were right on. Man. So you were right on my thought. Is that the laws of supply and demand? Because those supersede. I mean, whatever economic philosophy you have, from literal anarcho-capitalism or bottom capitalism to bottom communism. Again, not getting into neocons or Trotskyites or any shit like that. But if we're talking bottom unity, whatever frame of economics you have, the laws of supply and demand are universal. Ergo, that is the only and it's a constant this and this and this and that.
Yep.
Ergo, it apply, like you said it perfectly. When we start talking about the NAP, we need to start doing it in the realms of supply and demand, and past that, it is fairly useless, extremely useless. I loathe it.
I would say I don't find it useless, but I don't find it like something I can
guess
hinge on.
when
Like
I
I
say-
am not beholden to it.
By the way,
What, Mando?
sorry for the crazy kid. He was having a meltdown.
Oh,
Well,
no.
Individuals have that. I am allowing that because if a 5-year-old can have a meltdown, then
See, I guess when I say the NAP is useless, I do that within the frames of I think this entire conversation has generally been speaking. When we think of the NAP, we're talking about it in a worldview sense, in a macro sense, correct? I mean, that's kind of what this discussion is.
I would say individual because when I first came on board and it was talking about what it means to me, I'm using now the ANCAP actually has an ANCAP party. There's an actual. I'm on the website, and they define it as the NAP.
The American Capitalist Party.
Yeah, the NAP. No, not the American Capitalist Party. This is a different party entirely.
Oh, there's another ANCAP party.
There's another ANCAP party. I know there's so many. No individual, not worldview. This word individual no individual may initiate force against another individual's body or property.
Yeah,
this is a micro view, not a macro view.
See, I guess I need to clarify that. When I said macro view, I meant how people as a large take it.
Oh, okay. Well,
when people, we're discussing what people's opinion on is it versus, so when I say like the NAP is useless, I mean it like as something to build upon for the group as a whole. When we're talking about the individual to build upon, it basically, to me, the NAP is nothing more than the fight or flight response. It's nothing more than supply or demand.
Well, that's what Timothy said. It's a
basic binary response. Yeah, it's a basic binary response, which is only subject to the individual. So yeah, I agree with you entirely. And I agree with that statement, sure, but in theory, and it's just, I mean, I won't make any single group that revolves around the NAP. I won't really, draft a moral constitution with 3 people revolving around the NAP.
All right, so
I want nothing to do with working like that.
Illustrate that, like this conversation, like when we first started it, there were fewer people, and we were more easily able to find a common ground on it. So it was actually less spicy. And then as more people came in, it became even broader. And as it broadened, it becomes way more complicated, and like the nuanced arguments and stuff come into play. And I mean, I think that's a really good visual interpretation of what could happen in the real world too, and what does happen in the real world, because this is the fucking real world.
No,
obviously we're less likely to fight with each other over it.
Probably. I mean, I know Mando's pretty hard in the NAP camp. I mean, because I know him personally pretty well. But I mean, and he knows I'm not in that camp, and we do perfectly fine with each other. So like, that just becomes up to basic maturity, regardless of NAP, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if 2 libertarians can disagree on some nuanced points that's not a lot of people don't understand, and they can move on, then we've accomplished a lot. But there's a lot of libertarians and anarchists that disagree so much in theory and principle that when they go outside of that, they're like, oh, we have to go back to like
that's
ground
because
zero.
those are libertarians and anarchists who don't do anything to deny the state, and they don't realize what's at stake with the state. They don't truly realize it. And they, in their life, haven't really ever done a single thing to deny the state. They might defy it by smoking some weed or having an illegal lower, or, throwing a bump stock, something with their guns or their weed, or they might deny it by collecting rainwater, or they might deny it by, or defy it by all these things. They don't truly they defy it, but they don't truly deny the state.
Or they just call someone else they said someone else is not a real libertarian.
Oh, yeah. You're not a real libertarian argument.
But these anarchists and libertarians aren't willing to deny the state's authority.
I'm ungovernable.
Right? Precisely. They're like, these, and it's just not something that really exists within the anarchist libertarian communities at this point. I mean, it's just not really there yet. Is the move to deny the state its authority, not just defy it. And yes, are there times where you're just going to have to accept you can only defy it? Yeah. There are times where you could outright deny the authority of the state, and people just aren't doing that because living through agorism is scary and difficult.
It is.
Because the concept of even just supporting somebody doing homesteading is difficult, much less doing it yourself. And I get not everybody is in positions to do that, and there are people that do have to pay property taxes. There are people that you do have to do that because the net benefit for you and maybe people around you is greater that you do. But there are too many people who have too many options open to them who could do agorism, even in light effects that is true denial of the state. There are too many people that could do these denial things, but they settle for slight defiance at best oftentimes because it's fucking scary. Because it's scary and it's big and bad and
Those
and
type
that's
of
why
folks that show up to protests in the back, being driven by their mother in the back of a minivan.
It's like that grandmother that told on
look,
her son.
To be fair,
because
if
he
that's the only way
protested.
you can get there, then go ahead.
But we're not going to get anywhere with that.
There.
The government's just going to continue to run over roughshod because there is no, and that's also where the NAP applying to economics is so crucial, or is an important thing to look at, is that binary aspect, because that is truly where you get binary between you and the state, you and the government, you and the institutions, what have you. That doesn't exist elsewhere, but it does exist economically, and nothing will happen as long as the state is allowed to have its economic power. But that's where people get scared. And that's where the NAP, to me, falls apart. A lot of people fall through on what their NAP is, because where they could actually do something, they're not doing anything. When they're being aggressed upon, they're not doing it.
One of the things that really turns me off with the NAP amongst like libertarians and anarchists is that we are claiming to be, individualist-minded people, and we each have our own nuanced view of what the NAP is. And we expect everybody else to agree with, I don't, but as a whole, I see out there a lot of times people expecting everybody to agree with their nuanced view of the NAP, or they're not a real libertarian or a real anarchist, they're fakes. And you don't get to decide that for somebody else.
No.
You just don't. You're just wrong. Your ideas of the NAP are not wrong, perhaps, but trying to fucking push other people into that box with you, that is wrong. And in itself, that's a denial of voluntary association, and could, according to some people's interpretations, be a breach of the NAP because you're trying to force people to live in a certain way, or you're going to what's the word when you throw people out of society or whatever? Excommunicate.
You throw them out of a helicopter, Mike.
Yeah.
No, that's the other thing.
So we're gonna get into some Hoppian philosophy now.
Do we have to? It always makes the room smell like shit.
Actually, while I was listening but preoccupied, you guys actually hit the other points that I wanted to bring up. So I wanted to bring up my second point.
Sure.
Hit it.
So, how many people and minds were involved in the original creation of the NAP principle?
Probably too many.
Wasn't too many.
Not enough?
So you're saying that the people that created the NAP broke the NAP by creating the NAP?
No. We're getting off track here. So, if one of us has some revolutionary idea about, okay, this is how people should act together, and let's be honest, this is how most libertarian and anarchist and anti-government literature and documentation have been. Someone came up with some idea, like Ayn Rand or several others, and people just latched onto it because that's what was in front of them. And I feel like this is what has happened with the NAP.
They sort of latched onto this idea because they had no guiding principle or philosophy to help them along the way.
So I have a different idea, and God, I'm opening a can of worms. I'm sorry.
Cool, let's go, man. Let's go. That's why we're here, man.
That's the point.
We got worms. Let's go fishing.
So I've mentioned this before. We had years, like over a decade, from the end of the revolution to the actual affirmation of the Constitution. I forget exactly how long. It was like 11 or 12, 13 years, something like that. Imagine all the discussion that happened, all the minds that put their parts into that.
Are you talking about the time when we were under the Articles of Confederation?
Going from the Constitution was
all of that's involved in
1787, and that was when it was done. And I think the Revolution 1776, so about 12 years or so.
Well, the revolution ended in like 1770, late 77,
early 78, yeah.
And the actual Bill of Rights was not ratified until, I believe, 1789.
Yes.
So in theory, we had over a decade of anarchist society.
Technically. I wouldn't say society. We had anarchists we had a more acceptable anarchist existence. That does not mean that society was practicing anarchism.
Which, to be fair, they just got out of a fucking war. So nobody
for the record, the Revolutionary War didn't really end until 1783.
Yeah, there were many that did not know that it was officially ended.
Well, and there was still ongoing issues. There was like 6 years there, but within 2 years of the Constitution, there was the Whiskey Rebellion. In between the loss of, or between the victory or the, the British, losing. Between that and the Constitution, or between that and the Bill of Rights and Constitution, there was a massive
You're going to support the point I'm going to make, but go ahead.
Okay, there was a massive denial of the soldiers who fought in the war. There were powers and elites at B that did take hold, so it wasn't an anarchist society. I mean, they told the soldiers to get bent. We had the Whiskey Rebellion within months of the Constitution, just a few years tops. Like this anarchist nirvana that supposedly existed wasn't really there. I mean, we have this concept that the founding fathers were all doing it for all glory and good, and all this hoopla of loving their homeland. George Washington openly tried to fight for the British, and they told him to get fucked because he lost at the time one of the bloodiest battles in history of the French and Indian War. Was a dumb shit general for the British in the 7 Years' War. It was completely ostracized from British military society, and yet when shit started getting spicy, he was an avowed Tory who went and tried to fight for the British, and they told him, no, you're a fucking stupid general, get bent. He's like, well, fine, then I'm taking my ball and going home. And he went and led the Americans, did a blundering, god-awful job until the French got involved because Lafayette happened to somewhat gravitate towards him, who Lafayette even later on said, yeah, no, not really. George Washington was a dumb fuck.
Well, I really wanted
You've just
so my point
alienated everybody who was watching now. I hope you're happy. No, I'm just kidding.
But that's not the point I was getting to.
Okay, my point was I was just countering your idea that there was some sort of anarchist voluntarist society in between all that, and it wasn't the case at all. It was just there was a slight power vacuum that was still completely controlled by the elites at their time. And I was illustrating why they fought that war, and why they were still the elites when they were done. It wasn't some hoopla, and it was still very much the elites of their day and the Rothschilds and their banking and all that bullshit.
When the war ended in 1783, each state had its own constitution. What they did was they formed basically like a mini form of federal government. It was very weak, very
but there was still
but it was still a federal government run by the elites.
There were still the elites holding play, and even outside of the government, even within banking. I mean, Thomas Jefferson spent his last years railing against the banking industry. I'm just saying is that never existed, and there's nothing to draw from it. There's nothing positive to draw about volunteerism after the collapse or after we beat the British. Whether you say that was, in 1779 or 1780, went from whenever we beat the British. There's nothing to draw from pertaining to volunteerism or anarchy or even anything basically libertarian from that period.
Well, to build on that point that you're making, Tommy, it was not an entire country forced into war again either.
What, after or before?
That influx time.
It was
And-
still, if a
there was-
war would have,
And to be fair, the Whiskey Rebellion was after the federal government was implemented. We should have seen immediately that something was not going exactly right with that.
Yeah.
well, yeah, I mean, that was after that was, the federal government had been instituted in 1783. Let's just
But
get that.
To get back to the point I was actually making, so most of anarchist, libertarian, ANCAP, ANCOM, volunteerist thought has been put forth up to this point by free thinkers. Individuals that decided to sit down and write something that they felt was relevant and needed to be heard, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what if, in contrast to what the founding fathers did, what if we actually took the idea of the NAP as a first draft and got as many people as we could to get in on this to actually make something resolute?
Okay, what I'm saying is that the NAP is not how you're going to bring people towards anything liberty-minded
In its current form, no.
in any form. Because, I mean, its current form is its any form. The NAP is pretty resolute of what it is. We're not going to edit the NAP.
So
I mean,
make it-
technically, each and every person edits the NAP for themselves, but that makes it even harder to make a group that's of any size based off of that. Like,
I think that what you're saying is exactly what we should do with volunteerism and exactly what we should not do with the NAP.
yeah, I think I agree with Tommy.
so
I gotta agree with them, even though he's an asshole.
at that point, you're really just talking about the label that you put on it.
No, you're not. No, you're not. The NAP and volunteerism are two entirely different
No,
things.
they are very different.
They are, I mean, yeah.
They kind of sound the same thing.
No, they're not.
Like,
Both. Okay.
you
Okay.
can violate one without violating the other.
Both concepts are in the right direction.
Perhaps, but the NAP
They
is
are.
the NAP is a moral guideline, the same as me. You know, if I decided to practice Mormonism, I couldn't drink coffee or I couldn't drink alcohol, right? The NAP is the same moralistic decision as me voluntarily agreeing to not drink coffee or alcohol because God told me to. Just like the NAP is me voluntarily agreeing to not aggress people. And so to me, no, they're not the same thing. The NAP is useless without volunteerism, but volunteerism could do perfectly fine without the NAP.
That's I feel like that's exactly true too, because like the NAP without volunteerism is just another fucking way to enforce your
See, I guess this is where I see it differently than the rest of you, because like from the first time I really understood what the NAP was, it was absolutely voluntarism for me.
And see, I think that we're trying to really outline here, and I know for you it is, but I don't think, I mean, to me, it's basically like a crusade. And how well did that work out? You're not going to introduce people to Christianity. You're not going to force that upon them. I mean, to me, the non-aggression principle, using the non-aggression principle to educate people is inherently contradictory because you're forcing them to agree with you.
I got a good example here.
I never forced
okay,
it.
if we
I'm
had
not saying
the
you do, but to
NAP as a
perpetrate
practice,
it, you would have to.
like if we had the NAP as a practice without the existence of voluntarism, then that huge group of moms against guns could theoretically say that because we are the existence of guns in society is a threat to their children, they have the right to remove those guns from everyone. And that would be
They don't
and
get to tell me what to do just because somebody came in them.
Well,
yeah, but that's voluntarism, not the NAP.
But
They
at
would
the
be reacting to a threat and to actual attacks and loss of life that are visible and observable in the world. Without the concept of voluntarism in play, if you only had the NAP there, then they, in their interpretation of the NAP, would be totally justified in taking away our guns. We would then perceive what they were doing as a breach of the NAP as well. And we are all fucking fighting for the NAP, and we can't fucking agree on it. Now, voluntarism, on the other hand, could be used in this situation. Like, if voluntarism was in use here,
let him finish here.
They'd be like, you know, you'd have to be like, well, the existence of guns is a problem, but we can't force everybody to agree with us, and we can't force people to give up their property because that's not a voluntarist action. There's no justification. Like they would use, people use the NAP to justify their actions, not to decide how they're going to live.
See, the thing is that there's no such thing as an inalienable. When you live in a system that works just sheerly off the NAP, if you build a system that uses the NAP as its framework, there is no such thing as an inalienable right. It is not possible.
There's not.
So you don't have the right to guns. You don't have the right to property. A system sheerly using the NAP as its guideline, freedom of speech is laughable at that point.
Well, yeah.
In volunteerism, it is. But if you have a system that works purely off the NAP, there is no such thing as any inalienable right. Working with the NAP in of itself, you might as well be an authority of the state. It literally takes away the authority of the individual at that point. That's the interesting conundrum.
I'm still not
because if the individual doesn't have an inalienable right, then they don't have the authority of themselves.
Okay, so
the NAP would just become another fucking manipulatable, twistable law.
It would just become another version of the state. It would become another version of the state, and that state would quickly tell you that you can't aggress against us, and that would become the law of the land.
I have to entirely disagree with this. The NAP is a natural discourse of action versus reaction.
Yes, and it's not a framework for building a society, any sort of community or group. It is that we've been saying that it's ones and zeros. It's actionary, reactionary. It's supply and demand. It is not a framework for creating any sort of cohesive group of people.
Yeah, but I never.
No, but it's
I never said that
policy.
It's a good thing for a person to hold true to themselves. But Mando's trying to argue that is somehow something that we should use to educate people on how to move forward, or that we should build as a framework for any sort of group. And that is patently disagreeable, patently contradicted by it being supply and demand. It can be one or it can be the other. It can't be a ones and zeros and something we formulated any sort of structure around.
Okay, if you go back to let's go back to the grid work, the left, right, bottom, and top. Okay, you've got the bottom left and bottom right working in ones and zeros of their own variables. Yeah. You've got the top left working in just ones and the top right working in just zeros.
Not really. No. 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 No.
You want to take this one, Tommy?
I think.
No, I'll let you take this. No, Mike Bobby. No. I'll let you take this one, Mike Bobby. I need a fucking cigarette.
God damn it! I have to pee. We were both just trying to get out of it so we could run away for a second. You bastard! You fucking.
Oh, Tommy! Oh my God.
The thing is, if you take the NAP and give it to people who are statists that do not understand the concept of voluntarism, and they take that and build something on it, they will inevitably, without the respect of voluntary association, use it to control and harm people. Always. That's what statists do. They use force. Statists gonna state, and they don't have it in their mind the concept of voluntarism at all. Which means
it's the same as the entirety of voluntarism, which means press.
No. Voluntarism is not the same. Voluntarism is a very broad concept in which everybody has voluntary association. It has nothing, like, you can consider
Volunteerism works
Like-
until everybody doesn't volunteer.
No, that's
it's-
not what
I don't know.
volunteerism isn't about volunteering. Volunteerism is about each individual, like to me, and I mean, like personally, I'm not gonna fucking break this down like an encyclopedia. But on one hand, you have the NAP, which is a very small, narrow thing that is about specifically aggression and the reactions to aggression. And then you have volunteerism, which is a whole like theory about voluntary association and the individual and how that works within a community and shit like that. If you have voluntarism in your community and you introduce this practice of response of cause and effect into it, sure, yeah, it's going to work fine because people are going to realize that there are different ideations of the NAP and that people have the ability to like think for themselves as individuals and stuff like that. And we can talk to each other and work things out. We're capable of doing that. If you were to introduce this concept into a different kind of society, like take voluntarism away and say democratic socialism or Republicans theory, whatever the fuck that is, you guys would get an entirely different reaction. Those people with their mindsets and their ideations of the world and how it should work would then be using this tool to enforce this fucking ideation. That's why you can't stand alone the NAP. You need both. And the idea of voluntarism will inevitably lead to somebody creating the ideas of the NAP without ever even being told. I mean, to be honest, that's what happened to me. I didn't know what the fucking NAP was until somebody actually told me what it was, introduced me to it, and I was already well along my voluntary journey. And when they said that to me, I was like, oh yeah, like that's fucking no-brainer.
Well, okay, I get that. I apparently saw this the entirely opposite way that you guys did. And to me, the NAP, the way it
I
should
feel
be,
so inarticulate tonight. I'm sorry, y'all.
the NAP to me is actually like an unofficial articulation of what voluntarism is supposed to be. It's like a guiding framework for the statists, the normies, or whatever you want to call them, or the curious even, to start approaching the idea of you don't need someone to tell you what to do. And that's where...
Yeah, but where does the NAP cover that? Like, where does the NAP cover autonomy?
Well,
Aside from the fact that you're not allowed to aggress on an autonomous person. Like, where does it teach people autonomy? Where does it show them what autonomy is? Like, where in the NAP does that come from?
because if you're forcing your view on anybody, you're violating the NAP. If you're
Not
using
necessarily.
force, wrong. No. We discussed this earlier. Coercion through fear, coercion through compulsion are violations of the NAP. We did talk about this.
We view it as that because we are voluntarist in nature. But if somebody who was not voluntarist in nature was trying to practice the NAP,
If you want to be technical for my upbringing, I was actually Republican in nature. And the NAP is what brought me to my voluntarist thought.
Were you really though? I mean, because your mind was open towards the idea of individual thought process or individual existence, or the NAP would have never fucking chimed with you.
Well, my original version of conservatism was conservative financial values and independent thought.
Yeah, that's not republicanism. That's libertarianism.
I said conservatism, not republicanism.
Oh, well, conservatism can go hand in hand with voluntarism, though.
Yeah.
Like,
It can't. I think we're
but
actually...
your mindset was not statist, though. Your mindset was more individual.
Well,
and so you wouldn't interpretate the NAP that way.
I think you're approaching a different topic that is a hard pill to swallow. there are some people out there who need to follow, and they will never fall into any of this.
No, they won't.
The only time they will fall into what we're talking about now is if we're in charge and we tell them that's the way it's supposed to be, which
I
is
feel like
fucking gross, disgusting.
I mean, we can do that in a gentle way, you know, like
Yes.
that would allow them to exist without being harmed. We could be like, you know, introducing voluntarist thought process and being like, don't break the NAP on people. And then they don't have to think. They can just go along with society's norm as they choose. And that's their personal voluntary choice, like their choice of how to interact with voluntary association. We don't have to beat them to do it. We don't have to threaten them like the state does.
Hey, Mike. Calix in the chat has had some pretty good comments going on. If you want to comment on some of those.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm gonna sort of I have to go soon, Mike, but I will preface this as I think, and you could disagree, but I think the NAP is working within the system, and the volunteerism thought is working beyond the system, or doesn't even associate with the system at all.
And see that I'm coming in to disagree with you because one could say Timothy McVeigh was working within the system. I'll always come back to Timothy McVeigh, because was he working? Because he wasn't working outside of the system. If Timothy McVeigh wanted to work outside of the system, he would have just gotten his stupid little white supremacist bullshit ranch somewhere in nowhere fucking Texas. No, He worked within the system to go buy the arms that required the system to do that, buy the materials required the system to do that, and he went and bombed the system.
But he never liked the system at all. So he was working.
That is working within the system, and maybe working.
That is acknowledging the system. It's not denying the fucking state. It's fucking
working within the system is not working while this concept of working within the system is doing good. It doesn't mean you're getting along or that you're doing things that don't disrupt the system. Protests are working within the system. They're not denying the system.
They are.
Working within the system means you are acknowledging its existence in your actions. We all have to do that to a certain extent in our daily lives, right? If I want to go to get a fucking double cheeseburger from McDonald's, I'm working within the system.
Yeah.
But we need to increase what we're doing within our lives that is straight up denying the system itself. However, the NAP still doesn't apply there because it's too subjective, right? Because you can decide what is appropriate measures for working within the system. Because in that example, then the Unabomber was following the NAP.
No, he was not.
No, because
I would argue that he was.
Because society at large, within that realm, he was, because people at large are if you read his manifesto, if you read that, his idea was that people at large are enforcing the harm that society does. So it doesn't matter who he goes after, because everybody reinforces the evil that society does.
Yeah.
Now, do I agree with that? No.
No. But I mean,
but within his realm of the.
But no, Tommy, I do understand what you're saying. But as soon as he included children in the victim list of his action, he did not plan appropriately.
And see, there's still, okay, that is what you think. That is also what I believe. I also believe that, but within the realms of NAP, it is easily plausible, and there are multiple arguments that can be used, that he was still abiding by the NAP, even with those children involved.
The
easily.
NAP
he broke the NAP with those kids.
No, the NAP, there is no such thing. Okay, I'll say it right now. There's no such thing as breaking the NAP.
Yes, there is.
No, there's not.
If you feel
you can't.
Okay, you got to explain that one, because I don't get that one.
Okay, because that's like
far out on this limb.
That's like me saying. That's like me. Okay, that's like me saying I offended the religious rights of Jews by eating pork, or the religious rights of Mormons by drinking alcohol. My possession of that. It's the same thing. It is the same thing, because it's subjective. Because a Jew believes.
That's like saying if you believe that that I'm hateful because I hate your skin color, you should kill my child because they're probably going to think it too.
The NAP could easily persuade for that.
It does
Easily.
not, because the child.
I could easily do
It's
that.
an act of self-defense. Like, okay, if everyone, think about it this way. What if, okay, if you're an oppressed person and the people who are against you and are oppressing you have children that they are training to oppress you too and to oppress your children, it could easily be decided. It could easily be placed out there as an act of self-defense. And I don't agree with it. That is not how I would have done it.
Okay, Mando, here's the age-old question. If you could go back in time and kill baby Hitler, would you?
No.
Okay.
Baby Hitler?
Most people could easily say that going back in time and killing baby Hitler would not be a violation of the NAP.
But hindsight is 20/20.
The thing is, it's not hindsight for you, though. You're from the future. He's already done this to you.
You already know the binary ones and zeros of what Adolf Hitler did.
Personally,
and the NAP is not regulated to time. NAP has nothing to do with hindsight is 20/20. NAP has to do with a direct ones versus zeros conversation. If
you disregard time, then you disregard innocent until proven guilty.
No, because if you
you do. The next Hitler might be alive right now. They might be 5 years old.
But we don't know that right now.
Yeah, we don't know.
If I was to go back in time, I can prove him guilty for what he does in the future.
If somebody in the same time period as that child, native to the time period of that child, were to kill Hitler, it would have been great for the Jews and gypsies and all other people that were fucked over by it, but it's still a breach of the NAP. You from the future, aware of what that person will do.
But us from
you already know.
Not a possibility right now anyway. So
that's okay, but we're not talking within possible. We're talking theoretically. And the theoreticals of it make it useless in of itself because there's no theoretical like this that could tear apart volunteerism. But it sure exists for the NAP.
Yeah, to me, there's too many gray areas in which it falls to interpretation, and because there is no solid definition of the NAP, and it's left to the.
And see, I'm saying this as a Christian man. I can't say that there is such a thing as in the world as a whole. We can't create a structure that says you are defying God by such and such actions, because to the Jew, that's merely eating pork.
Yeah.
To the Mormon, it's merely drinking alcohol, cigarettes, coffee, right? It's like the Mormon coming and telling each one of us that we can't drink coffee because that's an offense to God. Basically, they're saying that's a violation of the NAP against God, right? That's what they'd be saying.
That'll be an interesting conversation. Everything we're doing is breaking the NAP against God.
Right? Because at the end of the day, that's what religion is, though. That is what you decide. What is your non-aggression principle with a higher power or lack thereof?
Non-aggression principle does not apply to a higher power.
How does it not? Because the Mormon believes that drinking coffee is a violation of the non-aggression principle of their covenant with their heavenly Father, if you want to use a specific term.
Yeah.
It's also violating their voluntary agreement.
If the NAP was
it's
not up to,
because you were ultimately responsible to yourself.
Okay, but that's volunteerism. That's not NAP.
That's not NAP. That's voluntarism. Yeah.
No, it's not NAP. The NAP has nothing to do with being responsible or self-sufficient for yourself.
It doesn't. It has nothing to do with it.
Absolutely nothing. All the arguments you use for what the NAP is it's volunteerism.
Wait.
Yeah, it is.
That's it.
Does the NAP ever once consider that a law that governs you for your own safety, does the NAP ever consider one of those laws just?
Easily, yeah.
Got it in their hands. It depends on who's got it in their hands, because the NAP is up for.
Now you're just legislating morality.
Well, yeah. If the NAP was not.
Yes.
No, for real. If I
all right, y'all, calm down.
I'm loving this.
If I choose to not wear a seatbelt, am I violating the NAP?
One could easily say so, yes.
How?
Well, for starters, you're putting yourself at risk of going through the screen shield and losing your life and then not being there to support your children or those that would be dependent upon you.
Putting your
If you're
children
if you're getting into an accident,
Well, if you go into
you're
that,
put no. Let me finish. You raised the question.
Yeah,
Let me
sure.
finish.
all right, go ahead.
If you go through that window shield, if you plow yourself into a wrap yourself around a pole and you get killed, is it a possible violation of the non-aggression principle because you're aggressing the first responder to an immense amount of trauma when they have to come and see your decapitated corpse?
All right.
You see where it becomes subjective, and the NAP is nothing more than.
No, I do not, and I'll tell you why. First of all, that first responder chose to have that job. They chose that job.
Oh, I didn't. No. I didn't mean no, Mando. I did not mean first responder as in an EMT. I mean the first person who responds there.
They chose to interact too.
Okay, then would it be a violation of the NAP if they just walked the other way while they watch somebody possibly dying?
Thing, we either believe in free choice or we do not.
That's not the NAP. That's not the NAP. That's not the NAP. That's volunteerism.
That's interesting. Is free will part of the NAP?
No, to me, that is exactly what the NAP is. It is.
No, it's not. It is literally not. He literally read the definition, textbook definition of what the NAP is. And it literally does not apply to free will at all in the slightest.
The NAP applies to every bit of my free will.
No, it doesn't.
I'm just.
You have the free will. You have the free will to use the non-aggression principle. The NAP does not grant you free will.
Okay.
Does free will exist?
So
that's a whole other question.
So if I do that supposed dumb thing, I get into an accident, I put myself into unnecessary harm. Is that EMT or that first responder or that random bystander obligated to help me?
No, but it could also be easily construed that as a violation of the non-aggression principle to help somebody that's dying. That you're aggressing them because you're doing nothing within your power to save a human life.
No, the non-aggression does not require you to get involved in anything.
No. Your non-aggression doesn't require you to get involved into anything.
No, non-aggression principle means you do not enact force upon another person.
Okay, and it could be viewed as an
but
act.
The idea of force is up to interpretation, though.
Mando, because it could be easily viewed that it would be an act of force to allow somebody to die in front of you. It could be easily you would quite possibly be charged with that actually, if you allowed somebody to die in front of you after an accident.
But do we care what the government says about what we might be charged with?
That might be something that your community charges you with. That might be something your family charges you with. That might be something that I, standing across the street, watching you let somebody die, interpreted.
You could easily, within the confines of innocent until proven guilty, you could easily be found guilty for something akin to manslaughter for watching somebody just die, regardless of whether you said.
Fair.
That's a pretty
honestly,
easy one to say.
If I were to watch you stand there and let somebody die, I personally would interpret that as you letting them die, and I would act accordingly. And not in a positive manner.
That would be it.
If I know zero about first aid, if I know nothing about stopping a bleed, if I know nothing about CPR,
then you're just using that as a cop out to do nothing.
No, yeah, why didn't you go get help?
I could be sitting there screaming, "Hey, does anybody know how to help?"
No. Because this entire logical parameter started with you saying, "What stops me from walking away?"
Yeah. If you were there saying help or trying to get help, that's not the same thing. That is acting to try and help them.
And again, that is also up to interpretation, because if you're in the middle of the woods and it's just two people, you clearly know that your cries for help are not going to mean anything. So that's in and of itself not
In that situation, walking away, it depends on what you're walking away for. Are you running to get help, or are you just leaving them there to die?
The NAP principle.
The crux of the conversation where do we have trust in our fellow man or not?
You keep bringing in things that have nothing to do with the NAP, bro. You keep bringing in things
they're
that
not
have absolutely
in the NAP.
The NAP covers one small thing, one small binary reaction. It does not cover free will. It does not cover the actions of man. It does not cover the goodwill of man. It does not cover the authority of the state. It does not cover the lack thereof of the state. It literally requires one binary action, action versus reaction, supply versus demand. It literally has nothing at all to do with what you've been saying for the last 20 minutes. At all.
How so?
Well, because
I just explained it.
The NAP only applies in the way that you believe it applies because you're into voluntarism.
I think I know how to explain it to myself, and I get it. But in order for me to explain it outside of myself, I'm not going to get it. Because I don't understand it fully enough to explain it to someone beyond me. But I am at the point where I cannot associate the NAP beyond an economic binary system. And I am trying so hard to apply everything that Mando is saying beyond a binary system. And unless everything across the board in society and human nature in and of itself is binary, everything has to be binary, which means our thoughts, our actions, our choices, laws, policies, everything cannot have any nuance at all. Therefore, it would have to be a non-organic living entity. And the only thing I can apply to that is somewhat like artificial intelligence or economic policy or algorithms or robots. I can apply the NAP to that because there's a binary involvement with that. But once I put it into a human, the binary is thrown out the window. Even gender or sexual orientation is not binary according to some people. How are you going to force them to say there are two genders? Or how are you going to say to other people there are not two genders? I mean, I'm going along trying to not only be on Mando's side, but trying to, okay, let's do this and let's see if I can apply the NAP in that situation. I'm really struggling to disagree with Tommy and everything but the binary system. And I'm struggling to do that. And I'm struggling to argue in favor of Mando because I need to argue myself first. So I get where Tommy's coming from, but in order for me to explain to Mando, I think there's a mindset you have to have first that I think I can see that some people have. But in order to understand that mindset, Mando, one has to come from a very logical and analytical point or a critical point of view where I see everything as 1 and 0. There is nothing else but a 1 or 0. There's nothing else but off or on. Like if I turn this computer off, is it dead? If I turn this computer on, is it alive? I'm putting human terms into that. It has not broken the NAP at all. It has not followed the NAP. But when I turn a human off, besides myself, killing myself, when I turn a human off, I am definitely doing something wrong, ending their life.
And unless they were trying to turn you off.
Exactly. So in terms of framing it beyond a binary system that Tommy explained, that I would need to frame every single situation, every single nuance in a binary system. And it's difficult for me to do so. So I am not saying a whole lot right now because I'm having a hard time trying to explain to myself that I agree with Tommy. Even though I agree with Tommy, it's hard.
I mean,
it's not a bitter pill to swallow. It's just a concept that is.
as far as the
Anyway, it's a concept that's
go,
esoteric. It's a very esoteric concept when you move the binary concept out of the picture. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Explain it earlier. It might have been a little bit more. Now that we're talking about all the ones and zeros, it might have been a little bit easier to get if I were to say, like, when you're using code, like you have objects that are utilized by the code, the files, shit like that. The NAP is an object utilized by the code. The code is the ideology of the person and the outlook and theory of the person that is utilizing the NAP.
That's a fantastic way to put it.
Yeah, if you take that file and put it into a different code, it's not going to be utilized the same way.
Well, coming from a programming class that I'm taking, that concept makes sense with one of the concepts I'm working with.
I'm hungry and I want to go eat and have a few cigarettes. And yeah, I love you all, guys, but I'm gonna get some food.
Tommy, it was great hearing from you, man. I appreciate the conversation.
You as well. Yeah, it was a good conversation.
Hey, Tommy.
It really was.
Tommy, always loved arguing with you, man.
This won't be the last time, I'm sure.
I enjoyed it. I really did. Like, we don't get enough. Yeah. Like, the NAP is a perfect topic for us to all be able to sit down as people who work together on things and like to be together on things and we get along really well. We all still have such a very different view on it and everything like that. And I think that's a good interpretation. We all have slightly different code, and we're making use of this file in our different ways, just like other people would as well. If you were to put it into status code, it's not going to come out the same way.
System error. That's what it was.
System error.
Well,
right?
Fuck the state, folks.
Yes.
Deuces.
What Tommy said.
Take care, Tommy.
Later, Tommy.
But yeah, I think what I'm going to do at this point when I talk about the NAP, Mando, is I'm only going to talk about it in an economic sense. That makes sense to me personally. That I will say I believe in the ENAP, the economic or electronic non-aggression principle, the binary system.
I can understand that because like that's like the difference of where you and I have talked about this. You see it in the very like digital 1 and 0 kind of aspect. I think about life differently.
Yeah.
So like for me, it's a very like in-person 1 and 0 kind of aspect.
Yeah, you're very organic. You're very fluid. It's very holistic. It's very not esoteric, but it's an openness to humanity.
And don't get me wrong. Yeah. Like I mean, in the flow of things, and as shit happens, I'm sure I'll make mistakes too. But yeah, I'm gonna do my best to like fight against aggression and provide for my fellow man as I can. But we're all going to do it in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I don't think that using the NAP as a learning technique, now, I don't think it should be a beginner technique. I have to agree with, would you calm the fuck down? He wants me to give him kisses. He's biting
the cat said you violated the map.
Look at that.
This brat. I think that it's okay to use the NAP as a teaching, like a moderate level teaching thing, or as like a theorizing. It makes us expand our concepts to discuss the NAP as we do. And I don't think that it's terrible to practice so long as, and to speak of and to use, so long as we do understand that it is a file that is utilized by code, not the code itself, because there are just so many different codes that could utilize that.
So
and we have to, as voluntarists, we have to understand that.
More time with you tonight, even if
do what?
I want to discuss the NAP one more time with you tonight, even if it's after the podcast.
Sure.
It won't be long, I promise.
But yeah, I think where I'm going to
We could
defer
probably
from.
keep doing this all day.
Yeah, I got to go though. I'm somewhat on Tommy's end. I'm hungry myself.
Well, we are getting into about the almost. We're creeping up on 3 hours,
3
now.
hours.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good
so
conversation.
I would say that I'm not only going to amend my version of NAP, but I would say that in order for people to learn about the NAP, I'm going to direct them volunteerism first, Mike. I'm going to direct them to volunteerism. And then once they get that concept, I'll introduce them to the ENAP.
Yeah.
Because I don't think volunteerism strictly defines, I voluntarily transact to each other. Now, transaction can have an economic concept, economic backing, but sometimes we transact conversation or something that doesn't have a monetary value. But when I talk about economic NAP, the non-aggression principle from an economic standpoint, it's supply and demand. It's ones and zeros. It's the flight or fight type of scenario in humans. And that, to me, there's no gray area there. It's either you're stealing money or you're not stealing money from me, for the taxpayers out there.
I do have to agree. In economics, the NAP is very clear cut.
And that's what Tommy was trying to get at, I think, is that when you look at outside of economics, it begins to be a little murky.
Some other clear-cut situations.
Yeah, it begins to be a lot more murkier because you're not dealing with if you were to take a human action, and that's the only action you can take. You can't really say to all other humans, well, that's the only action you can take from this action that was created. It's like, well, every human's going to have a different way of interpreting that action, no matter what. Yeah. But everybody's going to say, well, if I get paid this amount and you're stealing me a little bit of this amount, well, I exactly know that you're breaking the NAP. I have exact evidence, exact numbers, exact. It's an exactness that I'm after. Not perfection, and about precision, accuracy. And in the NAP, beyond that, becomes fluid and esoteric at times and theoretical. Economics, when you look at what you get paid and what you don't get paid, you can see observationally how the NAP is broken. But once you get past that and the guy is flown out of the windshield, that right there, that action of not wearing a seatbelt, there's many different parallel universes that can happen at that moment. And it's kind of,
I think at this point you see like the NAP the same way that I do at this point. There's absolutes and non-absolutes, and like here's the thing that really comes into play: human judgment in the moment.
All right.
I think that's like where everybody gets convoluted about. And that's even in our current system, our current state system, that gets argued a lot about what someone was able to do and what someone thought they could do in the moment, it's something very relevant to argue. I don't like the way our state argues it, especially in legal.
Right.
But I think there's too much accountability at play in our current system. But as far as the ideas of the NAP and voluntarism and stuff, I do think that there's a lot of gray area in that setup.
There is, and I think that's a good point to end on. What about you, Mike?
I do too. I think that's an excellent point to end on, and I want to thank everybody who was here earlier. And just so you guys know, we didn't chase Ben away. He had to go deal with family stuff.
Yeah.
He didn't rage quit. He just had to go deal with family shit.
His kids were breaking the NAP.
And by the way, I still love Tommy. We're gonna argue like 17,000.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, and it's true. Like we do, like I think that even I and I3 have argued about stuff in the past that we didn't agree on and stuff. And it's wonderful that we can have these conversations. And I think that we are definitely going to try and have more of these kinds of conversations in the future where we just pick a single topic and we gather up people and we all sit down at the table and we just natter about it, because I think that matters.
Well, I really like the fact that we can all come together and just be adults about it.
Yes, it's important. There's a lot of places out there on the internet where that just doesn't fucking happen.
Unless you put an ANCOM in front of me.
I'm very happy. I didn't have to use, everybody was pretty orderly and I didn't have to use my special meme that I brought.
Shut the fuck up! You don't have the talking stick!
I didn't have to use it. I brought it, but I didn't have to use it, and nobody called anyone a fake anarchist or a fake libertarian. Nobody fucking broke up. We're all still one big, happy, dysfunctional family.
Right.
And the fact that we are capable of doing that and acknowledging that there's so many different thought processes going on and stuff, it's just
I3,
good shit.
I think there might be some ANSOCs or ANCOMs that me and Mike know that might actually break your shell on that.
I have already got one on the show. I think one is enough.
Working really hard to try.
Who is?
Creep.
Oh, okay.
God rest his soul. I hope he comes back on the show.
Actually, soon. Not even with the TM. So, yeah.
We'll look forward to that.
We're gonna have Creep back. I think he's gonna be back next week on Monday. So, and that's good. But thank you guys for coming and listening to us go back and forth on this. If you guys have any interpretations we didn't cover, if you guys think that we're all psychos, if you agree with us and you want to add on to it or whatever, hit up the comments, get us in social media. If you can knock our socks off with your opinion, I might actually just invite you on to talk about it at this point, because I like doing that.
Mike, one of the last things commented was the Good Samaritan concept.
Yes, I popped that up there earlier. I liked the idea that I liked that was being said. However, I don't want to get into a whole nother fucking discussion because it's late.
Like maybe that could be an episode.
Yeah,
yeah. The Good Samaritan. That's not a terrible idea. We could probably turn that into one of those topical episodes.
And it really could. That's a human nature, and that's something a lot of people can talk about a lot.
Yeah, it really is. And with people of differing like ideals and stuff like that sitting down to talk about it, we could create kind of a broad view of it.
Actually, I am also amending more of my thought. I think the NAP doesn't talk about morality or anything of volunteerism because it was not originally intended to set up that way.
It wasn't. It
was only intended for an economic purpose, and we have perverted it beyond its original purpose.
Ooh.
So that is my ending thought, and I am not going to back away from it, nor am I going to explain it. Boom.
Bam. If you guys want to come try and make I3 argue with you, you can join our groups all over the internet. Our link tree has all of those there. Get in the matrix and join the conversation. Please like and share this because, you know, the algorithm doesn't like liberty, and it definitely doesn't like long in-depth conversations about Timothy McVeigh. So please help us spread this around. I'm sure that they're gonna, I'm sure that's great. And that would very much help us. If you guys want to get involved here, be on the show, help us do the show, help us build the community and do what the community does. Help us teach, come learn with us, whatever. Just get in here and talk to us and we'll talk to you guys about it. Also, if you guys don't have time to do that and you want to help us out monetarily, we have a store with all of these lovely prints available in all of these lovely fashions. You guys can get something back for giving us something and rep some cool shit. Or you can join our Subscribe Star. Thank you guys who have joined our Subscribe Star. You help us keep the lights going. To be honest, like, it's a little bit lower than keeping all the bills paid, but that's okay. It wouldn't be the first time I had been putting into this, like, directly out of my pockets and shit like that, and other members of the team are doing so as well. And we do well enough to keep everything going. I'm just gonna let you know. But on top of that, everything that we get, we put into the LiberTEA fund, which we use to help people who are part of the Free Folk and their endeavors, and sometimes like mutual aid and things like that. We just try to put it where we can, where it needs to be, I guess.
I've seen,
and you guys could help us do more.
Everything that does not fund this show goes out to fund people in need.
Yeah.
I've seen Mike do that.
I do my best to know where it needs to go. By the way, if you know where it needs to go, fucking hit me up and we'll do what we can to at least get a little bit over there. We spread it out as best we can. The more we get, the more we can spread, though. Also, we have obviously on Monday, we have our Spilling the LiberTEA, where we'll be talking about things that are going on and the news and stuff like that. And on Tuesday, we're gonna have Josie on. And if you don't know who that is, you really should show up and find out who that is, because they're really interesting and I really like them. And I think that you guys are going to enjoy the conversation we have. And, I love showing people different faces of liberty to people so that we can have this broad, nuanced view like we were able to fucking get here today. Broad and nuanced, not broad nuance.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Mike,
my grammar got away from me there for a second. But we'll look forward to seeing you guys, and eventually I'll be doing some more fucking daily shows. I have no fucking clue when. Don't hold your God.
We are still waiting on that.
Until then, this episode of Stirring the LiberTEA is fucking adjourned. Don't break people's nap on purpose, I suppose. And fuck the government. Stay strong. Stay safe. Stay free. Don't give away your fucking safety. Your freedom for your safety. That's bullshit.
Be kind to your neighbor.